get us started with some Zoom room etiquette.
Please.
Sure. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to our first virtual celebration of gardens.
It's fun for me.
That's a good starting point. So if we could all keep our on mute as much as possible throughout the day, I think it will just
mute ourselves.
Sorry, trying to mute yourself. Yeah. So if you hover over your
no.
Okay. So really quickly, just
Katie, you've muted yourself.
oh, it looks like the host. So if you want to unmute yourself, you can actually hover over your own picture and there'll be a little button that says mute or unmute if you're muted. So you can click on that and to be able to unmute or mute yourself again. So anyway, I hope you're all doing well this Saturday morning. We're really excited about this event. We want to make sure that you have the best experience possible. So I just want to do a quick Zoom tutorial since I know that these virtual meetings can be a little confusing or maybe a bit new to some of us. So we're going to have a lot of great speakers today, and the best way to be able to see them large on your screen is to go into speaker view. So right now, if you're seeing, I think like 20 people on your screen, that means that you're in grid view. So to be able to go into speaker view, you'll actually take your mouse and hover in the right-hand corner of the Zoom box, and you should see something that says speaker view. So if you click on that, now you should be able to see, I believe, do you see me as the biggest on the screen? Okay, great. Yeah, so I think just for our speakers' purposes, it's probably best if we see them largest on our screen. So if we want to keep in speaker view throughout the day, that might be best. Does anybody have any questions or any issues switching into speaker view? Okay, great. And just so that you're all aware, we will be recording this event so that folks who missed it will be able to watch it at a later time. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat function. You can find the chat at the bottom of the screen. There's a little menu bar and chat is in the middle. Someone actually just said in the chat, there we go. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat. We'll try to address and answer as many questions as possible throughout the day, but we will need to gauge how much time we have as we move through the day and our pretty packed and awesome schedule. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Brooklyn Queens Land Trust amazing board president, Sadea Brownlee.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you all for joining us today. It's so wonderful to see all of your faces, especially since we can't be together at the Job Corps like we usually are. I'm so glad to see so many of the cameras on, so many people on the screen today. And welcome for those who are used to being with us at our Celebration of Gardens and for our newcomers. So just to give you a little introduction, the Celebration of Gardens is our culminating event for our BQLT community. We reconvene to share stories, break bread, groove the music together, and reflect on the season's highlights and challenges. While this year presented some unimaginable hurdles, we paused to consider the impact of the diseases affecting us, the pandemic of COVID and the pandemic of racism, subtle and overt, and persisted to provide safe, fertile spaces for our communities, as we always do. At this year's Celebration of Gardens, we'll look at the collective power we hold as a land trust, and I invite us to recall and remember how we got here. For our new community members and visitors, we welcome you to our family affair. This is like a family reunion. So we're so excited to see you, right? This is a wonderful way to learn about our cultures. It's a wonderful way to meet some of our gardeners who are the pillars and the backbones of the Brooklyn Queens Land Trust. And it's also a wonderful way to learn about why we do what we do. So it's my honor to introduce one of our longtime family members, one of BQLT's champions, the New York State Attorney General, Tish James. I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction to her. We have the bios listed of all of our amazing presenters today. And so I would definitely encourage you to refer to those to get the full scoop on everyone here. But just to give you a brief introduction, Letitia Tish James is the 67th Attorney General for the state of New York. She's had decades of work with community. She's an experienced attorney and a public servant with a long record of accomplishments. She is also the first woman of color to be elected the Attorney General. In 2013, Ms. James was elected public advocate for the city of New York and also became the first woman of color to hold that citywide office. And in her role there, did so much for those of us who work do the work of community gardening, of stewarding open space for everyone to have access to. She transformed the public advocate's office to be a formidable engine for change. Now, as a Howard alum, I would be remiss to not say that she is a proud graduate of the Howard University School of Law, as well as Lehman College. So I'd like to give a big thank you, and I hope that you would join me in giving a virtual applause to New York State's Attorney General, Tish James.
Thank you, Sadaya, for that wonderful and warm introduction. Whenever you say decades, it just reminds me of how old I am, but thank you so much. I also want to thank Office Program Associate Damika Roberts and today's other program participants, Elizabeth Rossi and Jacqueline Harris and Terry Gandy Richardson and Candace Thompson, Shelley Nicole. But I'm really excited that we are going to hear from one of my favorite novelists, Jamaica Kincaid. Yay! So welcome today to BQLT's annual celebration of gardens. In this week of Thanksgiving, I'm honored to join you in expressing my deepest gratitude for the life-affirming work of the Brooklyn Queens Land Trust. For more than 16 years with a tiny staff, a big vision, and an army of volunteers, you have preserved green spaces and promoted environmental sustainability and enhanced the bounty and the beauty of Brooklyn and Queens. As servants of both the earth and this vibrant community, you are the definition of what it means to work from the grassroots. I have long supported your mission and your work. As far back as 2011, when I was the Brooklyn City Council member, I stood on the steps of City Hall and with many of you to rally to save Green Thumb, the city's support for community gardens. I remember attending so many of your meetings when there were only a few of you, but you persevered, and here you are now. As Attorney General, my highest priority has been the empowerment of grassroots working class communities to improve their neighborhoods and their lives, but most importantly, protecting the environment. As most of you know, the New York Attorney General, my office, has brought more lawsuits against the Trump administration than any other Attorney General in the nation. In fact, I believe we are now at over 100 lawsuits. And hopefully going forward, we can reverse the trend. And so we are preparing a plan for the next administration to reverse and stay all of that litigation, and most importantly, to pass legislation to improve upon our environment and to get back into the Paris Accord. This year, my office has been especially responsive to the needs of New Yorkers who have faced the twin pandemics of COVID-19 and systemic inequality. We have taken special steps to protect vulnerable residents from COVID scams and other consumer frauds. We are aggressively going after those who prey on struggling homeowners and seniors who have been victims of deed theft, individuals who unfortunately steal their deeds to their homes. We did a rally. I went door to door to notify homeowners, particularly senior citizens, of all of the unfortunate scams that individuals are engaging in these days. Throughout the pandemic, we have sought to ease the financial burdens of residents, suspending the debt that is owed to the state, medical debt and student debt. We are a leading force in the movement for police and criminal justice reform. And what you are doing here is just as important. Your commitment to educate and inspire people of all ages to become successful and environmentally responsible gardeners is a vital piece of what it takes for these communities to flourish today and for future generations. Community gardens are not only beautiful to admire, but they're spaces, they're civic spaces for us to gather, to share our thoughts, our concerns, and our issues. They provide much needed nutritional alternatives in neighborhoods where healthy foods are hard to find, and they serve as cultural meeting grounds where people of all ages and races and backgrounds can work and play and learn together. Today's celebration is an affirmation that nothing, not even a pandemic, not racism or financial crisis, can keep us from coming together. I know that we will all be together soon on the other side of this mountain. So stay positive, stay focused, stay together. I leave you with these words from a poem by Chief Seattle, an early Native American environmentalist. He once said, "Teach your children what we have taught our children, that the earth is our mother. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons and daughters of the earth. We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves." I want to thank the entire BQLT family for teaching us through your words and deeds this important lesson. And before I leave, let us keep in our thoughts and prayers an environmental justice champion who we lost, Cecil Corbin Mark. One day when we can all be together, I want to plant a tree in his legacy. He, as you know, was the deputy director for We Act in Harlem, and we memorialized him this past week. Keep him in our thoughts and prayers, but remember that together, we're going to overcome all of the challenges together as one. Happy holiday, all of you, and thank you for allowing me to say a few words, and may you all continue to flourish, plant a garden, plant a tree, and save Mother Earth.
Thank you so much, Tish James. We really appreciate you coming out and for all of your years of support, as well as all of the work that you're doing for our many community members, not just gardeners, but those of us who are our families, members, our friends, and people we live with, right? Thank you so much. Amazing. So before we jump into our next speaker, Ms. Jamaica Kincaid, I was hoping that we could reflect together on the work that we do, the work that gardeners do, and the history of the land that we're a part of. That our gardens are on the lands of the Canarsie Lenape is very important to acknowledge, because recalling who lived, loved, and died on these lands and lost the ability to self-determine on the land because of settler colonialism and burgeoning capitalism, and be in relationship with that land, is instructive as we consider how we move forward as an organization and as a community, and for what causes. Many of our gardens are over 20 years old, founded by immigrants and migrants to this city and country. Many of them serve as community institutions, as the Attorney General spoke on, spaces where all manners of the community can come for respite, come for understanding, come to learn, come to organize with fellow community members for their needs. We must acknowledge that many of our gardens were founded by Black and Brown people, expressly to provide necessary green spaces for their children and families when the city and businesses had divested economically from those neighborhoods. So it means something that we're still here after all those years, and while some are not. We have to examine what that means and allow it to inform our collective goals and next steps. The land is precious. Place is where we congregate and dream together. It's where we strategize on how to implement those dreams. It's where we can heal and restore for the long journey to come. And the way we care for the earth and consider or not our non-human relatives, how we tend our gardens, which products we use, which policies and politicians we support, how we communicate with one another, will determine whether or not we have a land trust to organize. And so when I find myself frustrated with how to move collectively, with so many things happening with the land, impacting the land and impacting our relationships, I turn to history for guidance. With all of the variants and goals and beliefs that we've come from, we have so much to learn from the ways that our ancestors and older community gardeners moved, as well as how to move forward with that. We're still a young organization, just 16 years in. And so we have the privilege of being able to talk with past experiences with one another and also with other community members for guidance and information and inspiration on how the land has shaped their understanding of the world and how we move forward with whatever our goals are as a community. And so with that, I'd like to introduce an amazing novelist, poet, professor, Jamaica Kincaid. Her works include Annie John, Lucy, one of my personal favorites, The Autobiography of My Mother, and Mr. Potter, as well as her classic history of her Antigua. Her first book, The Collection of Stories At the Bottom of the River, won the Morton Darwin Zabel Award from the American Academy and Institute of Arts and was nominated for the PEN/Faulkner Award for fiction. Kincaid's most recent novel, See Now Then, was published in 2013. Professor of African and African American Studies in residence at Harvard University, Kincaid was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Letters in 2004. You can also find many of her amazing essays in the New Yorker magazine on community gardens and the impact of gardening on her life. So Ms. Jamaica Kincaid, we'd like to bring you to the Zoom floor and we'll have a little fireside chat conversation. So feel free to unmute.
In fact, I must do that. Feel free or no. I'm honored to be asked and delighted to know of your community organization. You know, I always wonder about these little places as I pass by them. But let me go back. At the beginning of your remarks, you talked about the people who lived where you are now, and say their names for me again, please.
The Canarsie and the Lenape.
The Canarsie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Canarsie is a native name also.
Yes, ma'am.
Just before I begin, I want every American to know this because I just discovered it. So being the egomaniac I am, I think everything I know, everyone else should know it too. But I just sort of stumbled into this because I'm very interested in names and the naming of things and the naming of places. That of the 50 states that make up the United States, 26 of them are named after Native Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you all knew this. I find this very significant. And of course, there are places like Canarsie, all these other, rivers, places, mountains named after people we've long killed and eradicated. And since I'm interested in naming and possessing, of course, the great deed, the great crime is the genocide against the native people in an attempt to dispossess them. But it seemed to me that in keeping their names, we have allowed them to possess us.
Mm.
So, we are not free of them. Every time you say Wyoming, you are remembering the people you have murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you say Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, Utah, Arizona, Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, you just go through the list and you realize that they are occupying us. We in that simple, most everyday way, it's like a prayer, you know. It's when you say these names over and over, it's like a prayer. And perhaps in saying the names over and over, we are asking them to forgive us.
Mm-hmm.
but I'm very glad that you acknowledge that you live in a place where someone used to live. We all do, uh, all
Hmm.
of us in the United States, and even as and Attorney General, uh, uh, we are all involved in injustice, or in making the long arm of justice, which seems to grow longer. The arc seems to be going further and further away from the horizon there. But never mind. It's important to recognize the lineage, at least for me, to recognize the lineage of the injustice I am living in. And what you did at the beginning, I think, did just that. You started with the Canarsie, and here we are, you know. But what happened to the Canarsie is something that continues with you and your community. Now, you are probably saying to yourself, why did she begin with this? This is a gardening conversation. But in fact, this is the kind of thing that I do when I'm in the garden. I think of those things. So actually, I really have to thank you for the Canarsie. I have a long list of names of native people that are in our vocabulary, our everyday reference. Connecticut is a native name. You would never get Connecticut full of white people in nice houses. Sorry.
No, don't
I
apologize.
mean, no, I'm sorry for them who think living in Connecticut, who think it's free of blood. It's not. It's
Mhm,
Connecticut. There used to be some people called the Connecticuts.
mhm.
Um, so anyway, that is how I begin in the garden. Is there anything you want because I'll just go on and on if you don't stop me. And you might have things that you would like to ask me in particular, me in the garden, if it's, um, is it how I came to be in the garden?
Well, I do have those questions. And I also, since we started this way, I figured we could continue on in this vein. I'm glad we decided to begin with heritage and the legacy of land. And, you know, as board president, but also as a member of this organization for the past 6 years, um, the concept of ownership and stewardship is something that I'm always thinking about. And I
Mm,
appreciate that that's something that is a central theme in your work. And in your latest article in the New Yorker that came out this summer, and I encourage everyone to read it if you haven't, where you talk about naming, and to name is to possess something.
mhm,
And then I appreciate the flip that you just made on it in terms of us naming something and the thing that's being named possessing us. We do have limited control over many aspects of our life
mhm,
in the garden.
mhm,
As a land trust, we have a certain amount of agency because we hold the deeds to the land. There are a number of things that could still happen, which could limit our access or our ability to continue to self-determine in the space. But I'm always grappling with saying we own the spaces, and also trying to be quality stewards, not only of the land, but also of our non-human communities, respectful of the legacy in which these gardens were born, and of the history that happened long before we got there. And so,
Oh,
you know,
something happened. Oh, it's fixed now. Oh,
okay,
there it goes again.
okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So with all of that context, I was wondering, what do you feel is the role of the community gardener in our current society? And how might that role shift to be in greater alignment with our internal and our external nature?
Oh gosh. Of course, I live in Vermont, surrounded by. Oh, someone keeps doing something, and you appear only as a telephone, a symbol of a telephone.
We just muted that person.
Oh, I see. Okay. So I don't know. I haven't really thought about as much as I should. Community gardens. Gardens appear in my imagination as you know, a private endeavor, not private so much as an individual endeavor, and community enterprises. I've sort of avoided them except for voting, government things, mainly because I'm such a contentious person that I find it best to isolate myself from others. But it surely is a wonderful thing to see plots of land in a city of vacant areas be cultivated. There is you know, something profound in it. And one of the biggest, perhaps the single, apart from my mother, of course, the single biggest influence on my relationship to the garden is the Garden of Eden, which only becomes a community garden after the fall.
Mm.
Until then, it was a garden of three people, Adam, Eve, and the person who made the garden. And so my relationship with the garden always starts with questions of power. And as you said, possessing and so on. But it's funny, this morning as I was taking a shower, and a week ago I was talking to, exactly around this time, talking to someone who has made an arboretum in North Carolina, I think it is. Yeah, North Carolina. And all sorts of thoughts went through my mind in that the arboretum that he's making will of course be part of the community, but it's in a very grand way. You know, it's the tree from China, the tree from Patagonia, and so on, and which is very important. It's very educational, you know, and it's probably the only area in our public discourse that we allow things from many different parts of the world to mingle among us if they're vegetable. Mm-hmm. And they just stand where we put them, and they do what we put them, and they won't take our jobs or whatever it is we hold precious, or go to school with our children, or yeah, the garden is the arboretum is one place. But one thing that interests me about the so-called arboretum or botanic garden, it's its evolution, because it really first started as a play. It started sort of as a, what do you call it, agricultural station is how the botanic garden really started. It started as a place where you gathered things to see how productive they would be. The first supposedly garden, botanical garden in the West is in Padua, where they grew bananas, but they wouldn't have been just growing bananas. Once if bananas could grow in Italy, would it be a product for Italy? Well, not really. Then the first botanical garden in the Western Hemisphere is in St. Vincent and Jamaica, where they were sending plants from various parts of the empire, British Empire, equatorial parts, to see how much product it could provide for England, which would then, these products would, like cotton and sugar, would be sent to England, which would then distribute it in Europe. And among the things, when people question the 1619 project, as I'm sure you know, people have said, oh, it's not true. It's absolutely true. One of the things that was upsetting to certainly the planters in the West Indies was all of their crops being sent to England and then distributed to the rest of the Europe, where the profits would remain in England. So so that's how I begin in the garden. The divineness of it, which is one of the things I think community gardens are very much involved in, whether it's acknowledged or not. It's a divine enterprise. It's this enterprise where people in this place come together and actually make a sacred spot, you know, introducing things, growing things, not for profit, not for material profit, certainly, but for emotional profit and communal profit in terms of kindness, love, respect. So it's in that, when I think of community gardens, it's in that way I think of them. I really thank you for making me bring my focus to them, because as I say, I think they really are an expression of something divine. I'm not a particularly religious person, by the way. Just I'm not an, and I'll tell you, I'm not an atheist, and the reason I'm not an atheist is because it doesn't have any good literature. And if it could come up with some good literature, I might be persuaded.
You know, I really appreciate you kind of bringing it, creating that comparison between the industrialization of agriculture and why growing plants became this very large global enterprise, and how that happened, and then to contrast it with community gardens, which I think really interrupts the individualistic nature of agriculture, and how it was industrialized for profit, right? I oftentimes think about, like you said, the intermingling of the many different types of plants and also the many different types of people in a community garden, and the conflicts that can arise, as well as all of the beauty that's created from all of that variance. And so I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I often wonder what gardening can teach us about community building, about relationships, about liberation, especially as it contrasts from the industrialized aspect of growing.
Well, one thing a community garden does is the labor is shared. The emotional and physical labor is shared. Something that is often left out of accounts of gardens is that they depend on having a lot of money. You know, you go to well, let's just say, for instance, Monticello or George Washington's garden. And, you know, Thomas Jefferson's often described as a gardener. Thomas Jefferson never planted one single thing, certainly as far as I can see from his journals. He kept, and it's a very interesting thing, he kept a journal of the things he grew, and they were divided in this way: the farm book and the garden book. The garden book has no people in it. An entry in it will be on a certain day, trees are planted, peas are planted on a certain day. 3 weeks later, an entry, peas come to table. And if you are not you or any of most of us in the audience, you'd pass it over. But if you are like you or me, I said, wait a minute, how did those peas get in the ground? And how did they come to the table? Did they just march themselves off to the table? And it goes on and on like that. In the farm book, however, you find the names of all the people on his plantation, their names, what they wore, how much food they needed, how much cloth they needed for clothes, blankets, all sorts of details about them, who was born, who died, who got sick. That's in the farm book. He separated them and in this bizarre way. And yet in some corner of the garden book is this peculiar little entry. It's a little box, and it's divided in, it has a line in the middle. One heading is free people and the other heading is slaves. And then it has number of males, so free people, number of males, slaves, and children, by gender, by age. Now the title of this little box is called Souls in My Family, number of souls in my family. And as I say, he separated them. Then he adds up the two columns, and then he puts the two columns together so that it's a sum of the people. But it's called Number of Souls in My Family. So to your questions about community, and you would say that that was a garden community he had. You could call it that. He certainly would call it that in one of his more romantic moments. He's very romantic and also very hard-nosed about business, but not clever. He died a bankrupt. He has the most beautiful china that he had designed in Paris. Anyway, so to come back to gardens are very interesting. The communal garden that you all have is more the garden that one imagines would be a path back to Eden. Collaboration and equality and, as I say, kindness. I just recently learned about kindness and its many ways to deploy it. But gardens, the great, before people like us decided, oh, gardens, we could be growing things with purpose and pleasure also. Gardens are these enormous enterprises, and they strangely come about after there is enough food, which brings me to the interpretation of the arrangement of the Garden of Eden, which is the tree of life comes before the tree of knowledge, which means if you have enough food to eat, you will then pursue horticulture. But to me, a community garden brings those two things together, does not separate them, because a community needs both food for the body and the soul. So to me, the community garden is more an attempt at a restoration than it is the other kinds of gardening. So anyway, yes, I've talked too much.
No, you've not talked too much at all. These are gems, and it's so crucial, and it's such an important reminder for us. You know, when you're in the work of maintaining relationships, I often think about gardening as hard work, but also heart work. There's a lot of relationship building and maintenance and listening and compromise and composting of things that have to happen. And everything that you said really touches on all of that, right? And I love that you said that the community garden operates as a space of restoration that brings the two, necessity and pleasure, together in one space. And so many of our gardens have that type of origin story, born out of a desire to see beautiful green space, but also out of a necessity to have free, safe, open space for their children, in a
Mm,
way to preserve food waste from, wherever they migrated or immigrated from.
mhm, mhm.
It's incredible. Miss Kincaid, I could talk to you all day, and I wish that I could. Fortunately and unfortunately, we have so many amazing
Um,
presenters today,
yes.
and we'd just like to thank you so much for being with us and sharing your thoughts and your knowledge and really motivation for this hard work and heart work that we continue on.
Thank you so much for listening to me and for introducing me. Oh my goodness, I'm so flattered to meet Letitia James. If only you have no idea how much I think of you. I mean, not I think highly of you, but also often. We
Mm,
The
wouldn't.
feeling is mutual.
Well, thank you all again for having me.
wow. Thank you so much, Miss Kincaid. This is really incredible. I'm going to transition it over to our treasurer, but before I do, I'd also just like to say, if you are having a wonderful time at our family reunion, also known as the Celebration of Gardens, and you are a visitor to the space, we hope that you will consider providing a donation to keep this hard and hard work
I
going.
will. I
Hmm.
will. I will.
Oh, thank you, Miss Kincaid.
I will. Let me. Yeah. I will. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Our amazing communications chair, Stephen, just put the link in the chat. Um,
Okay. Yes, I see.
yes, thank
Thompson.
you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Kincaid.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes, I just want to echo Sadea. Thank you, Sadea, for that great transition to talking a little bit about fundraising and our organization. And also, I just want to say thank you so much to Ms. Kincaid. I could listen to you two in conversation forever. So that was just such a beautiful way to start the morning. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Eling. I am the BQLT treasurer. I'm just going to spotlight my video real fast. Okay. I just want to say a few words about the work we do as an organization, maybe for those of us, yes, who are new to learning about how we work. BQLT is a small organization, and we rely largely on funding and support from the city, and we are so thankful year after year for the continued support from our city council members and our city agencies. However, this year, BQLT, as so many organizations across the country have found themselves in, we are in the position of needing to consider diversifying our funding sources, given that the impacts of the COVID pandemic on funding at all levels. And so, as an organization, our mission is to ensure the preservation of open space in perpetuity. We act as a steward for our gardens, the open spaces that we own, and help establish a community of gardeners in Brooklyn and Queens. We do this work, I have to say, in a pretty creative and clever fashion. We are one working volunteer board, and then we have one just amazing and accomplished staff person, Damika Roberts. And this work often looks like holding events like this, coordinating garden work days, purchasing garden supplies, caring for trees and gates and sidewalks. It also looks a little bit like paying bills, for our water, so that our gardens can have water every season, the liability insurance that BQLT provides each garden, and so on. And we want to continue this work at the level that we've been doing it and build on that even more. We've just, personally, I felt that BQLT has just accomplished so much in recent years, and we are so excited to continue building up our ideas for supporting community gardens. But in order to do that sustainably, we really had to decide, yes, we must start to think about other ways, get even more creative about how we support this organization. I heard Sadeh mention the word self-determination in her opening remarks, and it's a value that is very much lived out by our gardens and gardeners every day. And in light of these funding challenges, we thought we would further embrace this value of self-determination ourselves. And we're doing this year by holding our very first coordinated fundraising campaign at this scale. We are participating in a big crowdfunding effort. That link is in the chat. Thank you, Stephen. With the goal of raising $20,000 in 2020. It's a catchy phrase, but we also definitely need that amount of support in order for our organization to be financially stable in the coming years. And we launched this crowdfunding effort last week, and I'm so pleased to say we've already raised over $6,400 from over 80 individual donors. We have been blown away by this level of support. And we are so grateful to also announce that we have 2 generous matching donors who are going to help make this dream possible. Our former board member, Irene Van Slyke, and our former board president and emeritus board member, Demetrius Mills, and his family are matching funds up to $5,000 collectively. So we are just so thankful for their contributions. It helps us feel even more confident that we can meet our goal of 20K in 2020. So if you are interested in supporting us, the link is there, and we are accepting donations until January, but we are hoping to raise as much funds as we can by Giving Tuesday, as that is when our matches will go into effect. So if you are interested in learning more about how BQLT supports our gardens financially, please feel free to let me know. I'd be more than happy to chat with you one-on-one or answer questions over email about how we use these funds. But 100% of your donation will go to supporting our staff member and our gardens directly. So thank you for listening to my spiel. Next, I have the honor of introducing our following speaker, who is going to share a little bit about an incredibly important topic. Elizabeth Rossi is a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant who helps organizations like ours incorporate anti-oppression practices at all levels of our work. The BQLT board was honored and so grateful to be able to work with Elizabeth this fall as we continue to ensure that our organization is actively anti-racist and that this ideology is built into how we work at all levels. So we are so grateful that we could do that with Elizabeth. We learned so much as an organization and are so excited to put all of that work into practice. And I'm looking forward to hearing her sharing a little bit more about what she does. So with that, Elizabeth, I will pass the mic over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First, I want to just say, I don't even know where to start because I'm so stimulated by the richness of the conversation. So thank you, Ms. Kincaid and Ms. James, for everything that you have shared. I was writing notes and now I'm like, oh, what am I going to talk about now? Because y'all are so wonderful. And thank you, Sadeh, for also moderating, because that just added another layer. So my name's Elizabeth, pronouns she, her. And I had the privilege of working with the board. I wanted to say this fall, COVID timing has me all, it was recently y'all, this year. And we had a wonderful few days together where we got to deepen conversations around the work of the organization and how to understand things from an anti-racist or racial equity point of view, and continue the work, a journey, I would call it. I think my personal opinion is any consultant who comes in and says, I'm going to fix racism for you is lying. This is a lifelong journey at all layers of our life, our personal lives, our relationships, our work, that takes years to undo the trauma that racism and oppression has on us. I would have said I'd known this before, but science has now confirmed that trauma lives in our DNA, right? And one of my favorite quotes is, the spirit knows freedom even when the body does not. And so I think that we often live with this emotional kind of tension of like, I know something's wrong, but racism is like gaslighting us all the time. And I think what happened, particularly this year with the pandemic, is that that spiritual urging that was needed to be acknowledged had to come to the surface and had no choice. And in some ways, as difficult as this year has been, those are some of the gifts that it was giving us if we're willing to acknowledge it and open it up and go through the painful transformation of understanding the spiritual trauma that we have all existed in, that racism and capitalism has had on us. And so, what does it mean to really acknowledge this lineage of injustice? I believe Ms. James had said that earlier. And part of that, when I think about gardens, is how we think we have to own the land. And I understand the purposes of organizations buying land because we need to, right? But even something as we are owning the land in order to create gardens versus shifting our conversation or our thought process of I'm co-creating with the land, right? That I am in relationship with the land, because I think a giant gaslight that happens for all of us is how capitalism removes things from our communities, and then it's ways that they build their own wealth, right? So for example, the arts, think about all the arts programmings that are taken out of school, but one way to build wealth is to buy art. How gardens are taken out of communities, but the one way that we see like estates work are these huge mountains of land of really curated gardens that beautify a space, because there is actually an acknowledgement that things like arts and gardens are incredibly important to our spirits, but we're told they're not necessary when it's time for funding, right? And so I think that part of the work that I do is a lot around like definitions and examples to say, actually, we're being gaslit. And that intuitive feeling in your gut and your spirit that says there's something wrong, probably from birth for many people, is actually my job is to affirm that and build off of that. And so, and to create some healing between our interpersonal relationships so that we can do it in the institutional work that we do, because institutions are made up by a group of people, right? We think about like these buildings, right? But it's a group of people who made an agreement and shook hands or have policies and laws and all this other stuff. Like, what is a board? And they're legally kind of tied to all these agreements that may have existed before they came. But what if we decided that we agreed on something different because this is not the way we want to co-create together? And that's the level of power our interpersonal relationships can have. And so part of my own work is to speak to that, but also to say that there needs to be healing in our relationships. I don't know if I mentioned before, I'm also a social worker. And so there's usually a lot of trauma and self-defense mechanisms and hurt that's coming up. That's also part of the conversation that I think we often don't have. We're talking about racial equity. We focus on these big words like microaggressions, and we focus on these big words like white supremacy, right? And though that is definitely a part of the work that I do, another layer of it is that it sounds or it feels really hurtful to hear this information, and this is traumatic for me. Or I'm getting defensive by having to acknowledge my privilege, and that's preventing me from having an authentic, transformative relationship, right? And so those are the layers of doing racial equity work, from a healing point of view, from a social work point of view, that I bring into my work, and hopefully transform organizations to more authentically show up. So those are just a few things about me and my approach. I don't know if anyone has a question that I can expand on.
I also just wanted to say we are looking forward to having Liz rejoin us. Hopefully that's something, that we are able to
Absolutely.
support, with this fundraising campaign. We're looking forward to bringing Liz back and working with us as a whole organization with our community gardeners as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Okay, if no one has any questions for Liz, then I just want to say thank you again, Liz. I really, really enjoyed our racial equity training that Elizabeth led us through, and just super grateful for that, and for her continued work with BQLT. So thank you again. So I just wanted to do a quick plug as a member of BQLT's nominations committee. I wanted to let everybody on this call know that our board nominations will take place this upcoming April at our annual meeting. So we're unfortunately losing a few of our longtime board members this year due to the term limits outlined in our bylaws, and we'll have some big shoes to fill. But I know that the people that we have on this Zoom call are some of our best resources for finding compassionate and diverse pool of nominees. So we're looking for gardeners and resource board members alike, but we do need our board to be made up of a majority of garden members, which I think is a really cool part that our founders added to our bylaws when they created them, and keeps us very garden focused, which is why, you know, we're all here anyway. So if you yourself know, or if you yourself would like to become a board member, or if you know anyone that would be interested in joining the board and do some of the behind the scenes work that goes into maintaining our gardens, throwing events like these, securing funding for our operations, doing outreach and communication, there's really a place for every interest here on our board. So we'll be circulating our nominations application most likely in January. So keep an eye out for that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to info@bqlt.org. So yeah, I hope that some of you are interested in joining us. We would really appreciate your participation, you know, even farther than maybe your gardening membership. And if you're not a garden member, we would like to hear from you as well. So with that, thank you for letting me do my little plug there. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Jacqueline Harrison. Jackie is a landscape architect and will be guiding us through our next session, Garden Smarter, Not Harder. So take it away, Jackie.
Hi, everyone. I'm gonna share my screen here. Give me a second. Okay, can you guys see it? Okay.
Yes.
Whoops. Just want to make sure you're seeing the the good view and not the, okay, there we go. So hi, my name's Jackie Harrison, and thank you for the introduction and for the time to speak to you all here today. And thank you so much, all the speakers already, for the amazing information already. This is so exciting, and I'm really honored to be part of it. I'm a landscape designer and a lifelong gardener. I work here in the city at a company called Harrison Green, where we design, build, and maintain primarily private gardens, primarily residential work, and it's primarily in New York. When I'm not in my work gardens, I'm in my own garden in Brooklyn or working alongside my neighbors on our block, which I don't know if you guys could put in a plug for us, but we never quite seem to win greenest block of Brooklyn, and we really try. So I don't know, you guys, Lincoln Road, like, think about it. It's a great spot. We always come so close. Gardening is one of the ways that, for me, I feel most connected to my community. It's the ultimate conversation starter, and it's also how I met many of my neighbors. I fundamentally believe that gardens are a physical place and also a mental place where we can come together. In a garden, diversity is not just strength, diversity is necessary for survival. And I hope today to be able to share some of my experiences and observations with you to help maximize your efforts and strengthen any garden lucky enough to have your efforts. There's one thing in common throughout my entire career as a landscape designer and as a gardener, is that everywhere I have worked has been difficult sites. And that's what we have here in New York. And because I've had to work in difficult sites, I've gotten some really great insights about plants. And what this all comes down to is plant selection. And I fundamentally also believe that plant selection can be what separates the efforts of one gardener from another. You may have one gardener and two gardeners putting in the exact same amount of effort, but one gardener may be more successful because their garden is more lush or looks a certain way. And the other gardener may not even get things to come up out of the ground. And that starts at plant selection. And that's what I want to talk with you guys about today to help maximize your efforts, because plant selection is the most important thing. It's important because when you put the right plant in the right place, you're going to prevent having to constantly replace plants. It's better for the environment to set it and forget it. You're going to save money on seeds, on seedlings at the nursery, in your mail order catalogs, whatever you use. You buy it once, or you have it donated to you once, or you acquire a plant and you put it in the right place. You're going to save money doing that and really maximize the budget that you have for your space. You're going to save time and energy. You're going to create a garden that's going to be much more fun to work in when you have the right plants, and you can spend time deadheading or, cutting flowers for an arrangement rather than, digging holes, which I don't know about you guys, but I would much rather prune than dig holes. And great plant selection really is the key to a great garden. Okay, so you're ready to garden. Time to go to the nursery, right? No, that is not the first thing you should do ever. Don't do it. Do not do it. So stop. The first thing you need to do is understand your site. You've got to be real with yourself, and you've got to be realistic with your observations. So understanding your site. First, we want to talk about observation, the lighting condition, air circulation, the planting condition, moisture condition, and being realistic about the effort. And I'm going to talk about each one of these things about understanding your site. So the first is observation. You don't have to start from scratch every time, which is why it's important to not just go to the nursery and buy something. You should look around about what is already on site, what's already doing well, and repeat what works. If you see a gorgeous oak tree and you want to plant another tree, plant another oak tree. The garden is telling you what it wants to do and what it wants to be. And so repeat what's already working. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. In your observation about your site, you want to consider a great view. That is a fundamental for a great garden. If there's something beautiful, a great piece of architecture, a great piece of art, an important view for the neighborhood of a neighborhood landmark or a cultural landmark, we want to preserve that and enhance it, which you can kind of see in the background here of the Dakota building. By putting trees around it, we kind of took advantage of that great architecture. It's really important in your observations before you make the plant selection to consider all the different human users. Are there going to be children here? Are people just hanging out in the garden? There's a million different kinds of human users, especially in New York City. And so really consider that. Are teenagers looking for a great Instagram backdrop? What are the users, and how can your plant selection benefit that? Then consider all of the different insect and bird users of the garden. They're important too. And there are plants that are better for them, and it makes no difference to us. So why not do the most good that you can? So talking about lighting condition, and this could be the most important. In gardening, you're either going to end up with a site that has serious sun, some sun, shade, or serious shade. But for us in New York, we're always in the extremes. So I think all of you would probably agree, we're always dealing with serious sun or serious shade. We don't usually get the stuff in the middle. You also want to, when you're thinking about where you want to garden, understand your microclimate, because here in the city where we have shadows, buildings, fences, bus stops, everything, within 12 inches, a plant that works in one spot may not work in the next spot. And so you really have to understand what's going on in the garden to understand, well, is this sun or is this shade? Because you're not going to want to put a rose or any type of native plant that needs sunlight in a spot that's full shade. However, there are plants for full shade, so you want to think about that. Make sure when you're thinking about your lighting condition that you're evaluating that during the growing season, because I think it's really easy in the winter when the leaves are off the large trees, like, oh yeah, you know, this is really sunny, this is a great sunny site. And then all of a sudden in June, you're like, yeah, this is actually full shade now. And all of that effort and all of that money I spent on these plants and all of this capital that I, you know, of my time, my community's time, my neighbors' time that we've invested in this, we've just lost because we picked the wrong plants for the lighting condition. Next thing to consider, especially important to us in the city, is air circulation. This is something that gardeners outside of urban environments don't have to consider the way that we do. Gardens for us, we're always going to be dealing with fences, walls, dense hedges, big trees. In some instances, our gardens are almost like, you know, completely surrounded by living structure and, you know, human structure. And it's really something to take into account because there's going to be less air circulation. That creates increased humidity levels in the garden and kind of creates what I like to call at work, it's dank shade, right? So we have to think about that and make sure that we're selecting plants that can handle that. Converse to that, you may have a site that has so much wind and exposure, maybe on a busy street corner, in a street, in a tree well, right? There's a lot of exposure there. So air circulation is an additional level of consideration for gardens in the city. And some plants just can't handle it. You know, if you have a very tall, fragile dahlia, it doesn't want to be planted in a street tree well on a very busy sidewalk. So it's about thinking about how the air is circulating through a space is an additional consideration for the plants in our gardens. The next thing you want to consider is the planting condition. So when you're evaluating your site, well, how much root space do you really have? And are you going to be putting this plant in the ground, or is it going to be in a planter? And so you really want to consider, when you look at a plant, what you see above ground, you want to remember that the root system looks exactly like that below ground. And that's about how much space it's going to need and want to take up. So the bigger plant, bigger shrub. And if you don't have a lot of root space, you may need to adjust kind of your expectations around what type of plant you're going to use. You also, when you talk about planting condition, want to think about like what the human interaction is going to be. Here in this image, it's a hot tub. We had to think about, you know, water was going to get splashed out and how that would affect the plants. And we actually, in this instance, used creeping thyme because it was a bit more hardy than like a moss or something like that. So you want to think about how the humans are going to interact with this garden and take that into consideration. Also, mechanical interaction. For us, you know, condenser units, HVAC units, all of the things that kind of make our city dwellings function and work, the mechanicals that support those systems so often end up for us to deal with in the garden. And so it's really important to understand what if there's going to be an output. Is there going to be hot air blown out all year? You know, that may not be an acceptable spot for a plant, and wasting time and energy trying to make something work there that never will is something we want to prevent, to make sure that our gardens are, you know, we're working forward in the best way we can. And it's also, when you think about the planting condition of your site, are you gardening because you want to do something for form, for beauty, or is it for function? Is it going to be, and so gardening for form would be, you know, do I want flowers here in the summer because, you know, there's going to be this great community event that we have every August, and so I need to think about plants that flower in August. And then planting condition for function might be like, you know, we really need a hedge here because we need to be good neighbors and provide some privacy from our public garden to what is their backyard that they want to be more private. So that would be, you know, selecting something for function. The next thing you want to consider is the moisture condition of your site. Let your drainage issue be your drainage solution. Before you go to the nursery, when you're evaluating your site, if you notice that there's constantly pooling water, there's always pooling water, plant a willow. right? Willows need tons of water. So let your drainage issue be your drainage solution. If you have an area that you notice is constantly dry and you just can't seem to have the soil hold moisture there, well, guess what? There's plants for that and native plants for that. So let your drainage issue be your drainage solution. And selecting the right plant is about understanding these parts of your site. There are plants that can thrive in every single condition, and that's the beauty of the diversity of our gardens. The next thing I think is really important is to really be real about the effort that you or your community or your neighbors are willing to put in to the garden. In this example here, you have a boxwoods, right? Boxwoods are not native. However, they're evergreen all year round. And this is actually tends to be a lower maintenance plant because all they need is pruning, twice a year. And so being realistic about the effort that you want to put into the garden, don't plant an heirloom rose garden if you do not have time every week to dedicate to that, right? So it's being real about the effort that you want to put in and do what you like to do. If you love pruning topiaries, great. Do plant plants that want to be topiaried. If you know that you love deadheading, great. If you know that you love foraging, or if you love bird watching, plant plants that are going to allow you to do what you like to do. And this is great. Before you go to the nursery, remember, if it looks like it's going to be a lot of work, it's going to be a lot of work. It's kind of the same with food. If it looks like it's probably bad for you, it probably is. So, okay, now you have a basic understanding of the site. So it's time to go to the nursery and select some plants, right? No, it is not yet time to go to the nursery to buy plants for your site, because I want to share with you guys something about the foliage of a plant that's going to help you just by looking at a plant at the nursery or what's existing on site, to tell you what that foliage is telling you about what that plant needs and wants to grow and be successful. And that is really in the foliage, because the foliage of a plant does not lie. So if you look at these two images, on the left, you have one type of garden, and on the right, you have another type of garden. And I think instantly everyone's thinking, okay, shade garden, sunny garden, yet poor air circulation, great air circulation, not a lot of sun, a lot of sun. But look closer at those plants. The plants in the shade garden on the left, they all have bigger leaves. They tend to kind of have a thinner leaf. They're more deciduous for those of you who can identify those plants. Then if you look at the garden on the right, all those plants have a smaller leaf, kind of looks a little bit waxier, and there's just a very noted visual difference in these plants. When you look at any plant, it is telling you where it wants to be just by how it looks. You could not switch the site conditions of these plants and have a successful garden. And because plants with big leaves, and it's relative, right? So we're talking about like perennials to perennials, shrubs to shrubs, and trees to trees. So when you talk about big leaves in a perennial, like a hosta is a great example, that's an adaptation for shade. The big broad leaf is going to allow it to catch more light. And due to the weight of the bigger foliage, the leaf is usually like really thin, almost like paper, and is almost always deciduous because it cannot support that in the winter. When you see a plant with little leaves, and in Allium millennium, this is a great example, and it was shown in the past image here. Little leaves are a sun adaptation. Narrow leaves lose less water to transpiration, and because there's so many leaves, when the plant gets fried in the sun, where it evolved to be, it's really easy for the plant to regenerate that leaf when things kind of cool off, because it's such a small leaf. So there's not as much investment in the plant. And an evergreen foliage is always, sorry, I'm just gonna move this. Evergreen foliage is always thicker than deciduous foliage. So if you're at the nursery and you're kind of like, is this an evergreen? You're going to be an expert because you won't even have to look at the tag. You just feel it. And if it feels thicker and a little waxier, then it's probably an evergreen. When you look at plants that have red or gray foliage, the red or gray color is an adaptation for plants that evolve to be in hot sun. So if you are at the nursery and you see a smoke bush or a Russian sage, or I don't know, this cool agave thing, that's gotta be in full hot sun. Don't even waste your time trying to put it somewhere else that's not that, because it won't be successful. And then if you come across a plant that's spiky or thorny, that's really something that evolved as protection for the plant, but I actually can't think of a spiky or thorny plant that grows in the shade. And if any of you guys can, I would love to know what it is. So if you're when you go to the nursery and you're looking across all the plants, just with those very few guidelines, you're going to be able to make a better selection for your site. If a plant is waxy, that's usually something that indicates to you that it's probably an evergreen, because that kind of thick waxiness, the plants evolve for wind protection. It's also drought protection in the winter because it minimizes transpiration, and the waxiness actually helps snow slide off the branches when it collects there in the winter. So it's really interesting the way plants, evolved to function and live in our environment. And if you come across a plant that's fuzzy, that's something that evolves for a plant that may have lived in a drier environment and needs to have moisture on its foliage. And here's just some bonus tips that I've kind of learned through my work. You guys, use natives. They evolved here, and they are New Yorkers too. Natives are tougher. They're better for the ecosystem, and they support our bugs and birds. They're drought tolerant, more drought tolerant than non-natives, and they're also winter hardy. You don't have to be a perfectionist. I'm super passionate about natives, but I use boxwoods in every garden. I can't help myself. It's just what we do. You don't have to be a purist, but you should try. And so when you're really considering plants in your garden, the garden you're looking at here, this garden is in the meatpacking district, and these plants are all native to New York, including the trees. And this garden is so easy to maintain. I cannot even tell you, it takes care of itself. It doesn't require as much irrigation. It doesn't require as much work, and it just looks incredible. And this entire building benefits from this amenity in a way. You could take this exact image and you could transplant this anywhere in Brooklyn, the Bronx, or Queens. This, using native plants anywhere in the city, makes for a better garden, and it makes more enjoyable, and they're easier to maintain, and they're more beautiful spaces kind of for the backdrop of our lives. When you're at the nursery, or if you're into Latin, there are some shortcuts that when you're reading the plant name that I can share with you that will help you know if you're using a native plant or not, or if you're using a plant that's right for the site, or maybe not. If the Latin name or the botanical name of the plant sounds complicated, then the plant probably is, and I'll show you on the next slide what I mean. If in the botanical name there is the word Virginiana or Canadensis, that's us, guys. That's a plant native to North America. If you see Japonicus, Chinensis, or Sylvestris, that's not bad, but you should just understand that you're at that point not dealing with a native plant. Here's a great example. Viburnum dentatum, that's an arrowwood viburnum, native. That's a great plant. You guys cover the world with arrowwood viburnum. They're great for birds. But then below this, you see the Latin name for Viburnum mauricii. Look at the difference in just the botanical name. Viburnum dentatum is native. Viburnum mauricii is not. And then same again, we can repeat the same thing with Eastern red cedar, which is Juniperus virginiana. That's Eastern red cedar. It's native. It's a great plant for us. And you have Juniperus chernensis, which you guys might know as Hollywood juniper, and it's not native. So and when you look at these images, the plants are similar enough. Why would you just not use the native? It's tougher. It's better. It's going to make for a happier garden. And so just by reading the botanical names, you're already getting hints about what plant is going to do better in your garden. When you go to the nursery, buy for form and foliage, not for the flower. Select plants for the future, not the present. You know, the nursery industry and the catalogs and all those things, that's an industry just like any other. They are motivated to sell us plants, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but we have to be smarter consumers. And so when you're selecting plants, you want to not go to the nursery and say, oh God, this is covered in flowers. This must be the healthiest plant. No, that's almost never the case. You want to take the time to inspect the plant, look for crossing branches, look for healthy leaves, disease-free things. You know, if there's a little bit of munching, that's not a big deal. You know, that's why I educate our clients all the time throughout the city and rooftops or anywhere. It's not the end of the world if bugs munch on your plants a little. Just make sure you have a plant in your garden that also attracts birds, and it's going to take care of itself. Green is the most important color in your garden, so don't be tricked by flowers. Don't be tricked. Don't be like a butterfly. Don't shop like a butterfly or a bee. Shop like a human. So when you go to the nursery, you want to look for different shades of green. And I use this example in this garden, which we did because we're just working with different colors of green and plants that were already there. We didn't need flowers here. And it's not always about the flowers. Taking time to make your selection. And I think this is really a big one for me when you're selecting plants at the nursery is not just being like, ooh, that looks pretty, I'm gonna get that one, or ooh, you know, the catalogs, they get me too. I'm like, oh man, I need that color flower. That's not the best way to buy plants. It's fun to experiment, but you know, just understand kind of what you're taking on when you do that. And so yes, that was just some information about plant selection, and I hope you found it helpful. I'm not a scientist, I'm just a citizen gardener here, and I also do it for work. And so if you have any questions or you have any observations, I always love learning from everyone. This is my email address, or you can find us on Instagram. And you know, good luck out there in all of your gardening endeavors. And thank you so much for the time. And I hope that that was helpful to you guys, all you gardeners.
Yay. Thank you so much. My name is Stephen Thompson. I'm a resident of Crown Heights and a gardener at 1100 1100 block of Bergen Community Garden in Crown Heights. And it's such an honor to have Jackie and Jamaica and Tish and our future presenters here today. And so thank you all, and to all our participants, for spending a beautiful sunny Saturday with us, because it's a way of appreciating the outdoors, indoors, and we'll have the rest of the afternoon afterwards to go play in the sun. I wanted to make a fun announcement that we're going to be doing a raffle later on in the program that one of our board members, David Beaumont, who works at the company Joseph. It's a design company that you've probably seen. They're very cool kitchen contraptions and organizing devices and gadgets around town. And they're beautiful. They work really well. And at our last celebration of gardens, we raffled off some of their goods, and we have another really generous donation again this year. It's we'll be showing images of them later, but they're very cool cutting boards that slide it into a folio, and so they're excellent for storage and excellent for chopping things on as people are cooking at home more and more, and you're harvesting those hardy winter squashes that require a sturdy cutting board. So this raffle is here to sort you through that. So we'll be announcing the winners of that later on. I also just wanted to go ahead and introduce our next participant today, who is, sorry, I'm just pulling up the program. One sec. So we're really excited to have Terry Gandy Richardson. We're going to move a little bit. Terry Gandy Richardson is a Brooklyn artist, writer, yoga teacher, and student, and African-American woman and breast cancer survivor. Inspired by the basic ideals and the 8 limbs of yoga, her work in personal practice also balances the properties of art, math, movement, and their combined spatial relevance to offer grounding. and support for others in their practice towards self-discovery. While her style uses all of those elements to teach yoga as a practical practice, she enjoys encouraging her wide range of students to recognize and value their own strengths and personal efforts. She became the owner of Park Slope Yoga Center in 2014 and is certified in a number of yoga styles and practices. And we're going to get a little sample of that now.
Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, good. Okay. So we're going to move. I feel like when people hear yoga for the first time, they automatically think of, you know, crazy poses and having your head, leg behind your head and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot to it. And the 8 limbs basically is basically in 8 steps. And we'll talk about that later, but I thought it'd be nice if we just got up and moved. So go ahead and stand up. Make sure you can see me. I'm likely not going to be able to see you, but I'm going to talk to you as if you're right with me. All right, so go ahead and stand up. And since we're, one of the poses that people tend to think of right away is a tree pose, and this is a garden event, so let's do some tree poses. So there's different ways that you can do tree. There's 3 versions. I'm gonna do a standing one, and if for anybody who cannot be standing or don't feel like your balance is off, I'll show you how to do it in a chair. But the first thing, you're just gonna stand on your 2 feet. We're gonna stand on the right foot. So you'll take your left foot and take the heel off the floor, and then just have your left toes in close to your right foot and let your left heel rest onto your right shin. So that's version 1. So what's really important in a tree pose is not to have your hips swing out. We stand like this all the time, which is really like standing on legs, which is really bad for our low back. There's compression that happens because your hips are uneven. So I want you to hold that hip underneath you and feel how your spine lifts. So that's version 1 of tree, and they're all the same. It's just you decide whether you want your toes on the floor, or if you want to take your foot to the inner calf, or the inner shin, which is a little harder to balance. And again, don't let that hip swing out. You're going to hold it underneath you. Version 3, if you can grab a hold of your ankle and put your foot to the inner thigh, very important that your foot is not on the knee joint. You want to protect your knee joint. So you'll decide which one of those works for you. And then for anybody who has issues with balance for whatever reason, you could sit in a chair. And what I would do is I would bend my knee out, right, and hold my foot there. And I would literally put my hands around my leg. You can see me here. And then what I would do is I would lift my other leg up. And then as you're standing on your standing foot, push into your heel. And if you're feeling wobbly, you can put your hands on your hips to stabilize through your legs. You can also bring your palms together. So this is balancing your left and your right side, which really helps for balance. You could also lift your arms up. So this is what it would look like in a chair. And then I'll just go back to standing on my right foot. So while you're here, you want to see if you can soften your shoulders. Again, holding your right hip underneath you, and then take a breath in, nice and easy, and a breath out. Okay, breathe in, and then on your exhale, you're gonna turn your lifted knee forward, and then just lower the leg and lower your arms down, and then just give your legs a little bit of a shake. All right, so we'll do a little bit more on the other side, but you see how you go. So just know that balance from day to day and from left to right is completely different. So just notice if your balance on one leg is really much easier than the other. And we're semi-symmetrical, so that's fine and pretty normal. So you'll just decide whether you want your right toes on the floor, letting your heel rest into your left ankle or shin. You can slide your right foot to the inner shin. Again, don't let that hip swing over to the left. You're going to hold it underneath you. And as you do that, feel your whole back turn on. And you can also take your foot to your inner thigh. Now you want to push the leg into the foot and the foot back into the leg. Again, you can keep your hands on your hips if you want to. You can push your palms together. And if you're pushing your palms together, you can sort of lift your chest towards your thumb. And if you want to lift your arms up, you could do that as well. You'll keep your jaw soft. Notice if you're feeling wobbly, that's okay. You'll bring it back. And then when I'm teaching kids, I do this. You'll take a breath in, and then on your exhale, funky branches. So do something funky with your arms. Take another breath in. Exhale, funky branches. Do something else funky with your. Do this twice more. Take a breath in. Exhale, funky branches. Take another breath in. Exhale, funky branches. Good. Nice and easy. You'll turn your lifted knee forward. Lower your leg down. Give your arms and your legs a shake. All right, and then start to just stand nice and still. We're just gonna do some side bends. So you'll breathe in and reach your arms up. And then take a breath out and take your right arm down by your right leg. And then side bend up and over towards the right and soften your shoulders. And then breathe in, come all the way up. You'll leave your right arm down by your right leg. And then on your exhale, just twist and take your left hand onto your right hip. And then take a breath in and take both arms up. And then on your exhale, take your left arm down your left leg. And then on your exhale, side bend towards the left. So you can soften the shoulders down away from your ears so you're not hunching your shoulders up. And then take a breath in, come up, leave your left hand where it is. And then on your exhale, go ahead and twist towards the left and take your right hand onto your left hip. And one more time, we'll do both sides. Take a breath in and reach your arms up. On the exhale, take your right arm down and then side bend towards the right. Inhale, come all the way up. And then on the exhale, twist, take your left hand onto your right hip. Inhale, come up, lift both arms. And then on your exhale, take your left arm down and then side bend towards the left. Keep your shoulders soft down away from your ears. Breathe in and come up. And then on your exhale, right hand to your left hip and twist. And then breathe in, lift both arms up. And then on your exhale, just take your arms down. All right, so let's sit down. And we're going to talk about the 8 limbs of yoga. And we'll move through this movement that can be done as a meditation. And I like to do this, one, because it explains the 8 limbs of yoga, of what yoga really is about. And it was a good way for me when I was doing my training to help me remember the order of what they were. And this linking of these two things to the parts of a tree is from a book by B.K.S. Iyengar, and he's the man that brought yoga to the States. And it's a book called The Tree of Yoga. And he basically talks about the 8 limbs, and he likens each part to parts of a tree. So basically, the whole gist of yoga is about connecting to your community, creating a strong foundation so that you can connect to yourself, right? And then the fruits of all of that allows you to drop seeds back into the community so that things can grow. So that's the whole idea behind it. So you're gonna sit nice and tall in a seat that's comfortable. You can also do the standing. You can also do this if you wanna get really fancy while you're standing in a tree pose. But you're gonna think of roots. So I want you to extend your arms in front of you and spread your fingers wide, wide, wide. So as you do that, I want you to feel the tugging of the muscles in your arms. I want you to hold your shoulders down away from your ears, and then breathe in, nice and easy, and breathe out. So in yoga, we breathe in and out through the nostrils. If you notice when dogs are panting right with the mouth open, that action of breathing actually jacks up your nervous system, and we want to work towards calm. So you want to keep your jaw nice and soft. You want to breathe in and out through your nostrils. And for this action of reaching into your roots, imagine that your arms, right, are the roots, and your fingers are growing deep, deep down into the ground. So you think of growing into our community, right? Connecting to the people around us, which is so important right now. There's just so many things going on. So reaching into our community is about reaching into our support systems, the people that support us, the things that make us feel grounded and steady. And we're reaching into that for stability, but we're also drawing nutrients, right, from all of that that's around us. So I want you to feel that work in your arms. Thinking about the roots, take a breath in and a breath out. Okay, from here, I want you to wrap your arms around your own rib cage, so around your torso, and this is your trunk, right? So when your roots are connected and they're strong, it helps to make your trunk strong. And in yoga practice, this action of thinking about the trunk is about ourselves, right? So we're very often, we're so busy, we're thinking and working to support other people, we very often forget about ourselves. So this is a moment to really connect, knowing that there really is no you unless there's you, right? So think about your needs. Even think about the presence of you. Right? Very often we just blow through ignoring our own presence in our own lives. And it's important. So here, with your hands around your own body, feel the sensations of the breath moving through your lungs. Notice what happens as that is happening. I want you to feel the strength of your back holding your body up. The power of the breath moving through your lungs is breath. And the presence of you as you feel yourself really sitting down on whatever it is you're sitting on. Okay, so that's the trunk. You're gonna take a breath in. I want you to reach your arms up and make fists. Now notice if your shoulders came up by your ears, I want you to pull your shoulders down. And as you do that, feel the work in your back to hold your arms up. So this represents the branches of the tree. And this is the physical practice of yoga, which is about the body and moving the body. And I feel like the yoga practice is very much like the parent. Remember how parents used to hide the medicine in the orange juice? It's the same way with yoga. There's all this benefits that happen. And the trick is to focus on the physical practice. But what happens is all this other stuff happens as a result that is very sneaky. All right, so feel the power of your back, feel your arms, feel if you can soften your jaw, and then see if you can relax your toes. Okay, you're gonna take a breath in and see if you can reach your fist just a little bit more up towards the sky without letting your shoulders travel with you. And then again, find your breath, keep the jaw soft, breathing easy in and out through the nose. All right, and then you're gonna take a breath in and spread your fingers wide. So this represents the leaves of the tree, right? So we all know that leaves, right, the foliage of the trees allow us to have more oxygen. So with that, this represents the breath practice. So as you breathe in, fill the lungs up, stretch your fingers. Stay here, and then on your exhale, see if you can make your fists again. And then breathe in, spread the fingers wide, filling up your lungs. And then exhale, make fists. Okay, this time take a breath in, spread your fingers wide. And then on your exhale, I want you to push your palms together over your head. Now, depending on the shoulders or how open your shoulders are, this might feel like quite a lot. See if you can really extend your elbows. And if it's too much, just take your palms together and just take them forward of your head a little bit. That should relieve some of the work in the shoulders. But then see if you can pull your shoulders down away from your ears. So for me, it's a little hard to talk in this position, but I want you to focus on the outside of your ribs and even your arms. So my arms are starting to shake, and just that's energy moving through the body. So this shape represents the bark of the tree, and this is how we start to go inward. So very often we keep spinning, right? Because there's so many things going on outside of us, and we get stuck in that trap of spinning, and we forget to focus on what's actually going inside. Like, how am I really feeling about what's happening? Am I just going with what's happening because I'm getting swept up with everything else? What's going on inside? So even here, to be a little bit more relaxed and easy in this shape, yeah, it's a lot in the shoulders and the arms. See if you can soften your jaw and let the breath move a little bit softer. All right, you're gonna take a breath in. And then on your exhale, I want you to bend your elbows, and you're gonna keep your palms together, but let your thumbs rest on the crown of your head. And then take a breath in and see if you can lift your head up towards your thumbs. And then on your exhale, I want you to see if you can soften your shoulders and feel the surface of the thumbs on the crown of your head. And as you do that, I want you to feel the length of your neck. So this shape represents concentration. As we start to go inward, it's easier for us to start to concentrate on what's actually happening inside. And this is represented by the sap of the tree. So imagine the sap running down from your thumbs all the way through your body, all the way down into the ground. And then stay with your breath, keep your jaw soft. And then take another breath in. And then on your exhale, you're gonna keep your palms together and let your thumbs rest in that space between your eyebrows. So this spot on your forehead is what they say is your third eye, and that's where the wisdom lies. So if you think in terms of many, many years or just knowledge, there's tons of knowledge that we have that we've not tapped into. Like, we're so on the surface. And then once we start to relax and go in, there is all this wisdom that we actually have. And if you think of like our gut and our instincts, our wisdom is also part of that. So this represents meditation. And this is the flower. So this is really the point of any yoga practice, is to start to get to a point where we're starting to meditate, to find that relaxed response, to find that calm and that balance. You'll take a breath in, and then on your exhale, let your palms come and stay together, but right in front of your chest. So this is a true marrying of the left and right side. So when the palms together, that's what this symbolizes, is balance. And in the yoga practice, this balance and this last limb of yoga is about balance and peace. So stay with your breath, breathe in, keep that length in your spine. Then on your exhale, see if you can push your palms together and feel that work in your chest and that work in your arms. So this is the fruit, right? And the fruit is what drops the seed for the cycle to start again. We'll take a breath in and let your hands extend, extending the arms, turning your palms out. And we'll come back to that root shape. And we're going to move through this a couple times. We'll move a little bit faster and just let your arms sort of flow. And I'm just going to talk and just remind you what each shape represents. So with your arms extended, this is the root of the tree. And this is what they call in Sanskrit the yamas, which is how we relate to other people. So this is reaching out into the community. This is what helps keep us stable, connected. And then you're going to take your hands and find your ribs and hold on to the trunk and see if you can soften the shoulders. So this is what's called in Sanskrit the niyamas. And this represents how we treat ourselves, right? How we talk to ourselves, how we think about ourselves, how we even consider ourselves. And sometimes it's just remembering that we are here and that we're present. And this is the trunk of the tree. So breathe in. I want you to reach your fists up and really extend your elbows, but don't let your shoulders come up by your ears. And feel that work in your body just from doing this. You can create more heat by squeezing your fingers in a little bit tighter, by really reaching through your arms without letting your shoulders travel. Feel that work in your arms. And this represents the asana practice, the physical practice of yoga. And again, this is maybe the threshold that gets us to the other pieces that is a little bit of that trick to get us to move towards meditation. Breathe in, open up your palms, really spread your fingers. And these are the leaves of the trees representing pranayama, the breath practice. And then just for a couple of times, on your exhale, make fists. Inhale, extend the fingers. Exhale, make fists. Inhale, extend the fingers. Okay, stay here, breathe in. And then on your exhale, I want you to push your palms together. We're going to find the bark of the tree. So the bark is the outer edge, right? So now you can really feel the outer edges of your arms, the outer edges of your ribs. Maybe feel that tingling, that shaking. And this is pratyahara, which is about going inward. When we start to meditate or you want to be in a quiet space, you move yourself to a quiet space. And then very often you have to move yourself away from the spinning in your head or the fact that you're maybe hungry or something you didn't do earlier in the day. It's about getting away, right, from all that stuff, going inward. You'll take a breath in, and then on your exhale, go ahead and bend your elbows and let the thumbs rest on the crown of your head and feel that release. And imagine the sap now running through your body. This is where we start to find concentration, right? Once we get rid of all the distractions, we can start to focus a little bit more. Right, you'll take a breath in. And on your exhale, let your thumbs rest right at your third eye. So this is the flower, the seventh limb, which signifies meditation and stillness. We'll take another breath in. And then on your exhale, go ahead and let your palms come together right in front of your chest. Again, so this is the fruit of practice. We call this samadhi. balance, and peace. Okay, one more round really quick. Breathe in and find your root. Extending your arms, spreading your fingers. Exhale, hold on to your trunk. Feeling the presence of yourself. Inhale, reach your fists up, finding the branches of the tree. Feeling that physical work in the body. Breathe in and spread the fingers wide, taking a breath. Feeling the power of the breath, right? The power of breath is life. Exhale, you'll push your palms together, finding the trunk of the tree as we start to move inward and feel that effort that we need to go in. And then on your exhale, go ahead and bend your elbows, let the thumbs rest on the crown of your head. Feel that length in your spine, letting the sap run through your body. Call that the juice, breathing in. And then nice and easy, sliding your thumbs to the third eye. For meditation, the flower. And then on your exhale, bring the palms back to front of your heart. Settling into that balance, that samadhi, that peace. And then just slowly go ahead and take your hands onto your belly now. And then just feel that work, the effort, right? So you might feel your muscles in your back that you didn't really know that you would work sitting down. Maybe your arms are sore, maybe your shoulders are sore. And then just feel your breath now underneath your hands. You'll breathe in and let your belly lift into your hands. And then on your exhale, pull your belly back away from your hands. Breathing in and breathing out. So this is something that can be done anytime, anywhere. If you're at work and you're feeling a little stressed, just sit down, hold on to your body and feel your breath. If you're having trouble sleeping at night, which is very common right now, this is a way to help you be able to settle in and relax. If you've got kids that are a little anxious from everything going on, this is another thing that you can do with them, that you can teach them to do to reduce anxiety and stress. Go ahead and just let your hands rest on your legs. Open your eyes if they were closed. And then just notice for yourself if there's any shift that's happened in your body just from doing this little movement today. So thank you so much for letting me teach you this little bit today. Hope you can use it. I'm at Park Slope Yoga Center. We've been open for many years. We're closed now, but doing classes online. So if you want, just look us up, drop in for class.
Thank you so much. That was incredible.
You are so welcome.
And I'm so happy it was right before I had to talk because now I'm feeling very good. I hope we can make a habit of this at our BQLT celebration of gardens. That was really amazing. Thank you.
Anytime, you're so welcome.
My name is Anne Schöneborn, and before I introduce our next super exciting speaker, I just wanted to share a little bit of, I guess, a personal testimonial. So back in 2013, I was working with neighbors in my community of Flatbush to organize around an unused lot that was owned by the MTA. We wanted to come together and turn this into a community garden. After many months of organizing and strategizing, we finally had started to get some traction with the MTA, and we were doing our best to meet the MTA's gradually unfolding and rather complicated requirements under our very formal status of just a bunch of neighbors working together. And then one day we were informed that we would need liability insurance up to $1 million. And a very wise ally suggested that we reach out to BQLT, the Brooklyn Queens Land Trust. At the time, BQLT consisted only of gardens that were owned by the trust. So a leased property was something completely new. But the generous BQLT community invited us to make our case, first to the BQLT board and later to the full garden membership. And eventually they did vote to create an affiliate program that was specifically for leased properties like ours. And I was looking back at the calendar today and realized that next month, December, it will actually have been 5 years exactly since BQLT signed the lease with MTA on our behalf. And this is what enabled us to officially open Kew Gardens to the community. Kew Gardens should not be confused with the neighborhood in Queens. We're called Kew Gardens because we actually sit directly on top of the Q train south of Prospect Park. So it's really almost impossible to capture or express just how many people and bees and insects and butterflies have benefited from the existence of Kew Gardens as a community space. But I can assure you it's been a lot. And if anyone has visited Kew Gardens, I'm sure you've gotten a sense of just how many people are involved there and how much is going on. It's been a really incredible experience to be welcomed into the BQLT community and to also now contribute as a board member to our shared goal of making sure that all of our gardens remain vibrant community resources in perpetuity. I think that's the really important piece. In terms of our fundraiser, we've already made incredible early progress. When I checked a few minutes ago, we were at like 33%, so a third. And it's especially meaningful because that came from donations from 81 different people, which is just amazing to see. If you haven't yet contributed and would like to make a small contribution to helping us reach our goal of 20K in 2020, today would be a great time. Again, we have 2 really generous matching donors, so any donation made between now and Giving Tuesday, which is December 1st, will be doubled. And without further ado, I'm so honored to introduce our next speaker, Candace Thompson. Candace is a human being, not a bee or a butterfly, who collaborates with soil, plants, microbes, fungi, animals, food, land, digital media, and other human beings in the search for healing, resilience, and mutualism as we face the climate crisis. Her project, the Collaborative Urban Resilience Banquet, uses citizen science, non-human storytelling, and foraged community meals to unpack the complexities of edible urban ecosystems and imagine a future where the streets are clean enough to eat off of. That's a dream indeed. She is also the manager of Solar One Stuyvesant Cove Park, a 2-acre native food forest in Lower Manhattan where the public is encouraged to forage from clean land atop a former industrial site. Welcome, and I will pass the floor to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. I'm so honored to be here. I've known about BQLT obviously for a very long time. And this spring I got to work with Sadea doing the Milk Crate Gardens Coalition project. And in that process, I got to meet so many amazing people and visit so many amazing gardens, many of which were BQLT gardens. And you know, it was a pretty rough moment back then. It's still a pretty rough moment, but like it filled me up to see all of the amazing work. And I hope that all land is one day held in trust. So I think the work you do is really, really important. Now is when I try and share my screen and hope this all goes good. Oh boy, wish me luck. Here we go. Oh, I am disabled from sharing. Can someone make me a
yeah, let me do that for you real fast.
It's because I bounced off. I had to go to class, y'all. Sorry. I went to class and then I came back. That yoga was amazing. I needed that so bad. All right, here we go. Sharing, presenting. It's all happening. Great. So my name is Candace, like I just said, and I think it gets really difficult for me to know how to kind of contextualize what I do. I think it depends on who you ask. Some people would call what I do art. Some people would call what I do activism. Some people would call what I do education, but I do all of it in service of trying to help us all reconnect to land. I probably, like a lot of you, am a land lover. And my hope is that we can use food. My hope is that I can use food to help people reconnect to their local ecosystem. So for me, that starts from the fact that I'm from Eastern Kentucky, I'm from Appalachia, and I come from a family that hunted and fished and farmed and foraged a lot of our food for most of my life. And it has always given me this very direct and immediate relationship to land, right? And then I moved to New York several years ago, 15 years ago now, and kind of lost that. And in thinking about the climate crisis, it just felt so big, right? And so complex. And I didn't know how to have any kind of purchase on what to do. And so I decided that I wanted to try and reconnect to that feeling and that relationship to land through my food that I'd had as a kid. So yeah, so I started this project called the CURB. It's an acronym for the Collaborative Urban Resilience Banquet. And like the wonderful intro said, it has kind of, in the main, 3 kind of parts. So the first one I think we would call citizen science. And what I do is I go around and I forage feral edible plants and some animals from the greater New York City area, particularly Bushwick, where I live. I live a half a mile from Newtown Creek, one of our 3 glorious Superfund sites here in New York City. I geotag where I collect each one of those samples, and then I submit them for toxicity analysis at Cornell. They can look at anything on the periodic table. However, I look expressly at arsenic, cadmium, and lead. As gardeners in urban spaces, I'm sure you all have learned that those are 3 of our kind of like primary contaminants that we deal with in urban space. And so once I get those values back, I then do what I call science to see if there's anything I can do about it. So sometimes that might involve learning about mycoremediation or bioremediation, or learning about how I could alter the soil pH to alter, lead uptake, or to think about which plants I could sow where, or which plants will and will not be impacted by contamination. But more often than not, what it actually involves is doing kind of like home food prep techniques, these traditional food prep techniques, and seeing if we can do anything with that to try and remediate what we're eating. So in this instance, you've got some field garlics, which grow everywhere, even this time of year, that I foraged from the abandoned police precinct beds near my house. Turns out these field garlics are just as contaminated as the NYPD. And what I did is I took them and I put them into a vinegar pickle brine. Vinegar is an acid. Lead and cadmium are soluble in acids. I didn't know this. I didn't really go to my high school chemistry class, but a soil scientist told me that. And I was like, oh, I wonder if there's anything I can do about it by making some pickles. So far, it would seem that when I do this process and I can them and I let them sit for, 3 months or something, the lead and the cadmium are pulled out of the plant tissue and left in the pickle brine. So we can eat the pickles, we just can't do a pickleback shot. So these kinds of things, right? If this is the world we're living in, which it is, what do we do about it, right? And when I'm able to make those foods clean enough, or I find foods that are clean enough, I serve them at a series of community meals. So for instance, this is last summer, not this summer. Last summer, I had a barbecue, a shipping schwitz on the streets of Bushwick. We had raspaditos that were made out of different herbal syrups that I made. We had grilled pigeon, not city pigeon. I bought the pigeons. And then we all had a big meal underneath the JMZ train. It involved, the pigeon was grilled with an Egyptian recipe I got from my friend Rola's mom in Egypt. The lamb's quarter was cooked in a traditional Bangladeshi recipe. We made mugwort mochi with my friend from Japan. And it's thinking about how our surrounding ecosystem is also a direct reflection of all of the amazing people from all over the globe who call New York City home, and thinking about how that collection of cultures, right, creates this very diverse ecosystem, right? And so, yeah, as you may have noticed, I said clean enough, right? Because in actual fact, we have a lot of these contaminants in our food system already. So what I do is everything I collect, I test and I compare it against European Union standards for heavy metals in our foods. So for instance, here's my friend Peony, and she's about to mow down on some ginkgo cheese. We're gonna start talking about ginkgo cheese here in a minute. That ginkgo cheese is made with ginkgos from Johnson Avenue in Bushwick. This little sweet ginkgo tree right here. This is one of my friends. But it's also mixed with cashews that I bought from my local grocery store, which I also tested, right? So here we can see, here's some cheese, she's about to eat it. The cashews from the store have 0.1 milligrams per kilogram lead in them. The ginkgos have none. The ginkgos do have 0.01 milligrams per kilogram cadmium in them. However, the upper limit for dark chocolate and cadmium is 0.8 milligrams per kilogram cadmium. So if you've eaten a dark chocolate bar this year, this ginkgo cheese is not your greatest vector for cadmium exposure. And so for me, I'm interested in kind of challenging these notions of purity in our food system, right? And thinking about questions about where our food comes from, at what cost and to whom, and who do we trust to feed us? And using these kinds of conversations to try and help us kind of reclaim some agency over where our food comes from and what we can do about it, right? And so, yeah, like, and all of that also kind of gets folded into this notion of storytelling, right? So, you know, I think the other thing that's amazing about ginkgos and, you know, that we just learned from this tree exercise, right, is that we have so much to learn from the natural world about how to be better global citizens. And each one of these plants that I've learned how to forage and learned how to acquaint myself with, like I said, has come from all over the globe, is known as a food or a medicine or a staple in another place, or a craft, right? And to learn the ethnobotany of that and to learn the stories of these plants and to realize that we have, humans are just so dumb, y'all. And we have so much to learn from them. So, you know, for instance, with these ginkgos, I don't know, yeah, I just want to tell you a little bit about ginkgos, really. They're 270 million years old. They are the last of their family line to have made it out of the Paleozoic era. All of their relatives are extinct. At a certain point in time, they only lived in a very small part of China, and Chinese monks thought they were beautiful, and so they started cultivating them. They developed in an atmosphere that had far less oxygen, which is why they can survive in all of our gritty cities and why they now live all over the planet. Obviously, this time of year, ginkgos are beautiful, right? These big, beautiful yellow limbs with these fan-shaped leaves. But a lot of people aren't such a huge fan of the fruit they make. It's technically not a fruit. It's called a sarcotesta, which doesn't sell it any better. And that's because they smell real bad, right? They also, when you touch them, can give you kind of contact dermatitis, a little bit like poison ivy, not quite as bad. But here's the thing. The fact that they evolved in that low oxygen climate might also be one of the reasons why they're really good for asthma sufferers. They are really good for cognition and memory. And they're delicious. Honestly, once you get past that nasty, stinky fruit, inside is a little nut that I like to call, it's got like a nice cheesy flavor to it, a little bit like it's got like a chestnut kind of texture, but like a little bit of nice funk to it, right? And so I decided that I wanted to try and take these and figure out a cool food that I could make out of them. I think they are an amazing teacher about boundaries. Here is a being who couldn't have made it here without making themselves serviceable to humans. But if they were if they didn't stink, and if they couldn't give you a rash, and if you could eat them like ad infinitum, Japanese conventional wisdom is you don't want to eat more than 8 or 10 at a time. If none of those things were true, you know humans would have eaten them to extinction by now. But they've learned how to live with us and alongside us without letting us totally take over, right? I know I've struggled with boundaries, and I hope that by eating some ginkgos, I'm learning how to be a little bit more like them. Oh, right. Also, so one of the things that we often do because we don't like the smell is we plant only male clone trees, except for that ginkgos can also change gender. So they, if you plant a bunch of dudes in a row, one of them might just be like, I'm gonna grow an arm that's a lady arm. So they're amazingly queer, They decide together, like a lot of trees, whether or not they're going to fruit from year to year, so they practice intentional reproduction, and they are the only trees that survived the atom bomb blasts of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They are, my friends, resilient AF, and I want to be just like them. So this is when I have to do even more kind of crazy digital pyrotechnics. So I have started, stop share. So I thought that I would show y'all my recipe for making ginkgo cheese. And I have posted it as a highlight on my Instagram. My video is paused during mobile screen sharing. I don't know what that means, but that's fine. So up here in the top, you'll see this highlight that says ginkgo cheese. I'm gonna try and walk you through this real quick. So, you know, if this was a normal time, I would love to be able to make y'all a little smorgasbord of things, including, you know, this ginkgo cheese and some curly dock crackers, some burdock pickles, some pesto from field garlics. I mean, I would have like really gone all out. I would have made you some mugwort beer. It would have been awesome. But I can't do that. So instead, I'm going to teach you how you can do it yourselves. At least this year, we're all learning how to cook more. So now I present to you how to make ginkgo cheese. Last weekend, my friend Zoya and I went to Greenwood Cemetery and collect some ginkgos in order to show you. So step one, you're going to follow your nose, find yourself a lady ginkgo. The good news is this time of year, actually, in some places, they can stink, but a lot of good foods do. In a lot of places right now, the fruits have actually fallen off and just left the nuts by themselves clean. So that's pretty awesome. If that's not true, you can do what I do. I have a dog, so I'm pretty adept at the whole using a plastic bag to pick stuff up with your hands and not get your hands dirty thing. So that's what I do. You can also wear gloves. I definitely suggest it, especially if you're still a little opposed to the smell. Boom, it's just that easy. Get yourself a bag of ginkgos. Thank the trees for their generosity. Maybe leave them a gift, which is what Robin Wall Kimmerer would ask you to do in the notion of honorable harvest. Then you're going to take your ginkgos home. I put them in a couple of changes of water and just use my hands to kind of get the last of the pulp off. Once again, if you don't want your hands to smell like ginkgo for the rest of the day, you can wear some gloves to do this. I am trying really hard not to use kind of single-use gloves as much as possible, so I'm willing to take the hit. They're gonna smell, you know, it's gonna be okay. You'll live through it. And you don't have to worry about them being perfectly spotless because you're going to roast them and you're gonna de-shell them. So, you know, it's not a big deal. You're gonna roast them for 30 minutes at 300 degrees. Then you're just gonna sit and crack them like you would pistachios or, you know, hickory nuts, walnuts, whatever you would crack. They'll have this little skin on them that you see here, like a little bit like a pistachio. Don't worry about that. We're gonna take them all off together. So once you got your big mass of ginkgos, I like to just take them by the handful and stick them into a Tupperware full of water. And this is when I have to slow down and stop talking, so we just watch myself do this. Give it a good shake. That friction, that water friction, will pull all the pistachio skins, pistachio-like skins off of your ginkgos and leave you with it's frozen, and then leave you with perfectly clean ones. If they have little bits left, you can kind of rub it off by hand. No big deal. Et voila, now you have some fully cooked and shelled ginkgo nuts. At this point, you can stop and eat them, but I'm a Capricorn and I'm extra, so now I'm gonna show you how to make vegan cheese. I like to do a half mix of ginkgos and another nut, so I often use cashews or walnuts. I soak them in water overnight. The next morning, I drain them off. I keep some of that water aside because if you need to kind of add water to your mix as you're blending, you want it to have dechlorinated because you're about to ferment and you don't want chlorinated water to kill your good bugs. So we go in the food processor, we start blending it up. I like to add, this is when you're gonna inoculate your cheese. So I typically use some of the water from the bottom of a jar of sauerkraut. I've also in the past used miso that friends have made for me. Or you can also, you can allegedly use apple cider vinegar, the kind with the mother. I will tell you, I'm trying to do a batch right now and I'm not having it ferment that good, but maybe I just messed it up. I typically use the sauerkraut juice. That's my go-to. You can throw in some salt. You can throw in some garlic powder if you wanted. You could throw in some nutritional yeast. The world is your oyster. Do what you please. You're going to blend it up until you have created whatever kind of texture you want, right? So like some people will take this and then they'll dehydrate it and they'll make like a Parmesan. You could take it and add a lot of water and make yourself kind of like a cream sauce, right? Like this is kind of the world of vegan cheese. I'm not an expert vegan cheese maker, but like at this point, how much water you add will dictate the consistency of what you are making. I made mine kind of nice and cheesy, almost like a spreadable, like almost like a cream cheese or a chèvre. So I blended mine up really good and creamy. Then I put it in a jar and I try and make sure that jar is all kind of clean on the inside so it doesn't mold. And then I cover it in some oil so that it stays anaerobic, just like you would with sauerkraut if you were going to put a leaf on top, you know, to keep everything inside of the brine, right? Same idea here. You're just trying to make sure that everything stays down and outside of air so it doesn't mold and get exposed. Give it a couple of days. And once it's started to kind of, as you can see, it's kind of grown, right? It's gotten bigger. It's got some bubbles in there. The bugs are in there kind of doing their good flatulence, making it nice and tangy and sour. Once you do that, you can take it out. I will sometimes put it into a cheesecloth and try and kind of mold it into like a small little shape. You could also just take it and put it in wax paper and make kind of like a tube, like you would see like a tube of goat cheese or something, and put it on a cheese tray and make it cute and spreadable. Or if you want to really go to the next level, you can take it and roll it in herbs and put it in a dehydrator and go through a more involved process to create like a hard cheese with a rind and a soft center. I'm not going to go into that now because I don't have that much time, but that is a thing that you can do. I mean, the whole world of ginkgo cheese or of vegan cheese is really quite involved. Serve it with some curly dot crackers, some Rumex Crispus crackers, maybe if you wanted to, and some chickweed from the park where I work, where you are very welcome to come and forage with me basically any day of the week. I'm there Monday through Friday. And I'd like to introduce you to some of the amazing native plants that you could be landscaping with, but you could also be eating, like golden Alexanders. And in fact, the park I work at is about to go through demolition and redevelopment because of the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project. So in the next month and a half, I'm going to be needing to rehome a lot of plants. So if you would like to try your hand at growing some golden Alexanders in your garden, you should holler at me on email. I'll put my email in the chat because I'm very happy to have you come and meet me and dig up stuff and take it home. I've got plenty. I've got 2 acres worth of, an acre worth of plants that need to go to new homes. And I'm very eager to not watch them meet their fate with a bulldozer. And like I said, if you don't have ginkgos, this is still just a great technique for learning how to make vegan cheese. You know, like plenty of us are lactose intolerant, or you're trying to reduce your animal footprint as far as your food goes, this is a good option for you. And I just want to remind you, like, be careful. You don't want to then proceed to make yourself a ginkgo cheese and sit and eat the whole thing in one bite. It's really something better shared with others because ginkgo is, like all medicines, very powerful, and you don't want to eat too much at once. And if this all feels a little bit too much for you this year, that's real. It's a hard year. At the very least, you could clock where your closest lady ginkgo is and keep it in mind for next year and go check her out. You know, you can always check her out in the middle of summer, see if she's starting to grow some fruits. And then once they start to drop, maybe next year you'll be ready to give it a shot. Thank you so much, y'all. Now I have to get out of here. There it is.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Candace. Oh, hello. Thank you so much, Candace. This has been so great. I'm so excited that everything has just been beautiful, and I wanted to thank everyone. I hope I don't get too emotional. But I just wanted to say, you know, when we were transitioning to a virtual event this year, it was really hard to try to figure out how to keep the same heart that this event always had. And I am one of those board members who is term limited. So I take a year off if I want to come back. So this is really like a special moment for me, and I'm kind of excited. So we still have so much more to do. We have a raffle, so don't leave at the end. And I'm really just so, thank you to everybody who's presented so far. Thank you for your hard work and your generosity of your time. And now I'm excited to have a bit of a musical performance from a wonderful artist, Shelly Nicole, who is here just so we can, you know, gather together. And don't be surprised if you start singing along, just make sure you're muted. Shelly, I'm just so excited to have you start. We're actually surprisingly running early, which I don't think we've ever done in a BQLT meeting before. So look at that, wonders never cease. Right? Wonderful. Hold on.
There I am. Awesome. Sorry. Just getting myself together. So greetings, everybody. And yeah, I'm very thankful. Thank you, Sophie, for inviting me to be part of this event. I, have lived in Brooklyn for a very, very long time now. I think it's been about 24, 25 years now. And have been, interestingly, a big part of the land here in Brooklyn, which I didn't really share with Sophie. She asked me to be part of this based on another event that she saw me perform at. But I just wanted to share before I start singing is the fact that for the last decade, believe it or not, I have been a host of a Native American sweat lodge here in Brooklyn. And we started on Bergen Street way before Barclays was a thing, in my friend's backyard, which was really beautiful and magical space. We were right on Bergen between 6th and Carlton. And it's interesting that, as Ms. Kincaid talked about earlier in her talk, about how we evoke Native folks as we call the names of spaces that are still here in Brooklyn, one of which, as was mentioned, is Canarsie. But we also are evoking on a daily basis the names of slaveholders that were here in Brooklyn as we evoke Bergen and Berry and Lott and Nostrand and Cortelyou. So it is an interesting thing that happens as we talk about names and how we continue to call, and even as we are calling, as she rightly said, the names of the folks who we displaced, we're also still calling the names of the folks that did the displacing. So it's a very interesting space that we're in right now. And I think in 2020, all the things, I use the word interesting, but like it's way bigger than interesting. But that's kind of, where we are and what is happening at this moment. But it made me just think as we started that lodge on Bergen Street in an effort to heal ourselves. If you're not familiar with Native ceremony of the Sweat Lodge, it is about healing of self, but in that space we also call for the healing of the land, we call for the healing of the community, our families, the animals, as they say, the four-leggeds, the two-leggeds, and that is the work that we did and have done here in Brooklyn over the last decade. So I can't get too much into that. I could talk a lot about the Sweat Lodge. As we talk about 2020 and all the things that were not able to happen, that was one of the things that was not able to happen this year, probably in a time when we really needed it. But I just wanted to say that and to thank, Sadaya and for calling the name of the Lenape and the Canarsie here today as we started. And I think that as we began, it's a good space to end. So I am a vocalist. My name is Shelly Nicole. I have a band called Shelly Nicole's Black Bush. I say it's the only bush you can trust besides your own, but that's a whole other story. And in 2006, there was an incident that happened in Jena, Louisiana, with some students who were later called the Jena Six. In that incident, if you're not familiar with it, there was a tree in front of a school. and it seemed to be that only the white students would sit under the tree. And so some black students asked about sitting under the tree. Of course, you know, school officials are going to say anybody can sit under a tree. But when those students did sit under the tree, the next day they came and found that there were nooses hanging from the tree. So there was an incident, a fight, an altercation that ensued between the black students and the white students. And then, of course, I shouldn't say of course, but of course, at the end of it all, it was only the black students that ended up going to jail or, you know, being arrested and prosecuted around that event. So instead of the city or the town really taking the time to investigate what might be happening racial-wise in their town, they just decided to chop down the tree, which I thought was ridiculous because the tree didn't do anything. The tree was just being a tree. But it was the people, the students, who decided to hang those nooses from the tree. So with that in mind and hearing that story, I wrote a song for the tree because I thought, you know, again, this tree didn't do any harm to anybody except grow. So, oh my goodness, I don't know what I did. That's so strange. I don't know what I did with my little shaker. So I guess I'm not gonna have my shaker right now. So we're just gonna sing without my shaker. It disappeared. But here we go. Eyes wide open, you can't see. Ears pressed to your history. Symbols hanging, yes, you know. Teach the children and watch them grow. Silence breeds intolerance. Your excuse for ignorance. Years and years of built-in isms falsely send my boys to prisons. Chopped down at her knees, hoping it will surely ease the pain of your city. You can't blame a tree for your hatred, and you can't blame Mother Nature for the hate your family taught you. You can't blame a tree for your hatred, and you can't blame Mother Nature for the hate your family taught you. Oh no. Oh no. People marching, it feels like old times, 'cause the punishment don't fit the crime. Black is guilty and white is right. Come on, people, do you still believe that hype? All our troubles have not gone away. We've just masked them with another face. Trees and nature are not the problem, but if we don't face them, we will never solve them. Chopped down at her knees, hoping it will surely ease the pain of your city. You can't blame a tree for your hatred, and you can't blame Mother Nature for the hate your family taught you. You can't blame a tree for your hatred, and you can't blame Mother Nature for the hate your family taught you. You can't blame a tree for your hatred, and you can't blame Mother Nature for the hate your family taught you. You can't blame a tree for your hatred, and you can't blame Mother Nature for the hate your family taught you. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze. Strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Thank you. We make do without shakers. I know where my shaker is. It's on my kitchen table. I went and got tea. That's where my shaker is. It's all good though. It's all good. We're gonna make it work. I was also when Sadaya talked about us at the top being in a dual pandemic, and I think that's very important to note. And I think it's 2020, if it hasn't taught us anything, I think that coronavirus, it did something which was, hopefully it made some of us slow down, and hopefully it made some of us take a look at how we're living, especially here in New York. I know for myself, being an artist, I'm always running, I'm always going. I'm at this rehearsal, I'm at that rehearsal, I'm here, I'm at this show, I'm at that show, I'm traveling, I'm on a plane. But it really made me sort of reevaluate how I've been doing this thing, and especially this thing that I say I love, which is performing and being a musical artist, an actress, but how I'm doing it. But just thinking about this dual pandemic, I wrote a song quite some time ago called I Am American. And I know being a Black woman in America, a Black person in America, it's a difficult conversation. It's a difficult relationship, because the fact of the matter is that this country is home, even though we are descendants from a whole other place. But there are those that try and say that this place is not ours, due to the color of our skin. But the fact of the matter is, we don't have this place that we call America without us. So I wrote a song called I Am American, and I'm gonna share that with you without my shaker.
That's okay.
Oh, it's all good. I'm teasing, I'm laughing at myself because I left it on the counter. I was born here, bled and died here, sacrificed here, so we could be free. Try to disrespect me, demonize, disgrace me. Take a second look, see, the truth is right here. Curse and disregard me, but like the phoenix, I keep on rising, rising. I am part of the fabric of this land. I too am American. Too much blood under my feet. I am American. Too much blood under my feet. Times are changing, a way is clearing, the paradigm is shifting. Make no mistake, feel the magic moving, a new voice we're choosing. Ain't no way we're losing. No, tide is turning, feel the flow, a new day dawning, oh my Lord. Fight ain't over, but we're one step closer to the goal. My contribution, it is wide, and it cannot be denied. Can't ignore me because I am American. Too much blood under my feet. I am American. Too much much blood under my feet. I picked your cotton till the land, bought your water, took care of your man, washed your clothes and foot your bills, healed your body when you was ill, gave you light so you could see, opened your heart so you could feel, fashioned a board so you could iron. I fed your kids when you was tired, snuck away so I could read. I gave you strength in time of need. Through many dangers, toils and snares, you tried to hold me down. I stand just like it's your land, it's my land, because I am American. Too much blood under my feet. I am American. Too much blood under my feet. I am American. Too much blood under my feet. I am American. Too much blood under my feet. Thank you. And I'm going to close with one final song, but I just want to thank Candace for talking about the ginkgo trees. So of all the many things I do, obviously I'm doing a lot of things. I'm also, I call myself a lay herbalist. And so the ginkgo trees, I love so much. When I first took some of my first herbal medicine making classes, my teacher, Robin Rose Bennett, she would take us on what she called weed walks, and we would walk through the parks and get to know the plants. And, you know, one of the things that she taught us about was the ginkgos. And of course, before that, you know, as was spoken of, is the smell of the ginkgo trees and how people are always like, oh, it's terrible. But now that I've known for some time about the beauty and the power of them, I just love it when the ginkgos, you know, when the nuts come down and they smell, and it just reminds me of fall, and it's lovely. So I just urge everybody, I'm sure everybody here probably loves the ginkgos, but they're really beautiful and awesome. So in closing, it's been quite a year, but I think that we need to remember ourselves and just remember how powerful we are. And as we have, I think, yeah, this time has really shown us, you know, what we're made of and what we can do, and really that the power lies within us. And just to paraphrase the Buddha, I'm going to paraphrase the Buddha, who said, as long as you have breath, you have a chance to start again. So if we wake up in the morning, if yesterday seemed really like, wow, you can wake up in the morning and you can, you know, start anew. You can start each day as if yesterday was not even a thing. So I wrote this song called In Your View, and I just want to thank everybody again for inviting me to be part of this. I'm always excited. Especially, you know, I feel like, as I said, I've lived in Brooklyn for so many years, and I feel like there's so many things going on, and you can never really do it all or get to it all. So I'm really thankful to be a part of this conversation and been here with you today. So thank you again. Every moment is a chance to do it all again. No need to worry and wallow in sin. We were placed here to be free. No more chains of mind. No mediocrity. Now is your time. Walk through the fear. Don't let it stop you. No matter the size of the task, the universe has got you. And keep on rolling and keep on rising. Keep on doing what you do. And keep on pushing and keep on shining. You got the whole world in your view. And sometimes it seems the world is full of confusion. No matter what you do, seems like you're always losing. I'm here to tell you, it's just an illusion. And take off your mask and shake off the delusion. Lift your head to the sky. Ain't no time for whining. You're one of the angels. You've got perfect timing. Come on in and keep on rolling and keep on rising. Keep on doing what you do and keep on pushing and keep on shining. You got the whole world in your view and keep on rolling and keep on rising. Keep on doing what you do and keep on pushing and keep on shining. You got the whole world in your view, yes, in your view, yeah. Got the whole world in your view, yeah. Hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. Thank y'all. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Wow, thank you so much, Shelly. Can we come off mic and give an applause for Shelly and all of the amazing presenters and speakers we've had today? Just feel like we need a moment to be able to hear how much we appreciate one another. You know, if we're in person, we'd be able to give applause and hug one another and share those smiles. But sometimes you need to be able to hear that, you know. Wow. Also, am I jumping in when someone else was supposed to be talking? Okay, I'm gonna just roll with it. This has been, wow, I mean, just such a magical day, such a magical day. All of the people that have shown up, gardeners, board members, staff, former board members. We've got Meg, we've got our emeritus board member, Demetrius, in the house, Irene. I don't want to call out any more names for fear of missing anyone. But, you know, I would just be remiss to not say that this space is only as beautiful, it's only as powerful, it's only as transformative as the people that show up to make the space. And I am constantly in deep gratitude to be in community, to be in the practice of community with BQLT. Thanks, Sophie, because I totally forgot about that. I'm gonna pass it on to someone to do the raffle. I don't know who that person is. They're gonna jump in right now.
Okay. Me and Lady are gonna pull some numbers. I had her trained to pull and call them out, but I guess she's taking a nap. Are we ready? Yeah?
I think we are. Katie, do you want to do the slideshow while Curtis calls the numbers?
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Can you not see it?
I see it.
Okay.
Maybe.
I might need a spotlight or a Ling. If you're on, could you?
Oh, you're spotlit. We can see.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so the first number is 85.
All right. I have the receipts on my screen and can see who was order number 85 and who just won this. Oh wow, we have Monica Abend. She's still on the line. Okay, Monica is Tish James's chief of staff and helped make that happen today. And so we're just going to take note of Monica's email address and get that her way as a thank you. We weren't going to award anything to people who didn't stay on the whole time, but I think that she deserves a special thank you. All right, what's the next number?
Number 11.
Okay, pulling up my Excel. That is Renee Kite. Is Renee in the room? Unmute yourself if you do hear your name called. Yeah, and again, thank you to our board member Damon and to Joseph for donating these. So we do have the diehards here who are still with us, and I see Renee is in the participant list. And so, so Renee, we have your email address and we'll be in touch about getting this to your doorstep.
The third number is 24.
Hello?
Hey. Renee?
Yes, this is Renee.
Oh, you're the winner.
Yeah, sorry.
Don't apologize.
Congratulations.
Oh,
All right.
thank you.
I know that cutting boards, they might seem like a mundane thing, but they're so important, especially if you're like me and maybe put them by accident on an open flame on your stove. And it might be time for some new ones after all the cooking we've been doing the past year. So congratulations, Renee. So I think, Curtis, you said the last number you pulled out. Yay.
The last number was 11, I think, right?
Okay. So that is right. Yeah. So 11 was Renee, and then I think, did you say 24?
Yep.
Okay. So for prize number 3, the registration is under first name A, last name Mo. That might be a nickname or a shortened name. Is A Mo in the room? Okay. Maybe time to call out the next person on the list.
60.
60. Okay. That is, oh wow, another nickname who registered under the first name, the letter J, and the last name 2 bracket symbols. So maybe someone who actually doesn't want to be tracked down to receive a very generous cutting board set. But if that person knows who they are, that they registered under that name, then feel free to say hey.
It's probably someone famous who wants to be anonymous, right?
Right, yeah. Whereas I personally want these cutting boards to make myself famous. So we're all on our own journey.
Okay. What's your number, Stephen? I'll call it. The next number is 54.
Okay, that is Nesha Eddy. Nesha or Nisha Eddy. Okay. I know all of our hearts are racing.
I know. We knew this would be the high point, me pulling numbers from my hat. $35.
Okay, that is Alex Munoz. Oh, Alex from the Parks Department who had to duck out early. I feel like we've already given one thing to like an official with Tish's chief of staff. I don't know if we want to keep going or if we want to reserve that for Alex.
They come there, right?
Let's pull another number.
That's like two.
Okay. Yeah, that will start to feel a little rigged.
57.
Okay. That is Sophie Duncan. That's different from Sophie Delacour, I assume. Do we have a Sophie Duncan? Yeah, okay. Is Sophie Duncan in the house still? We're really trying to reward the people who came through the end. Okay. All right.
12?
Next number.
12?
12. Okay. That will be Mara Gittleman.
I know her. She's Green Thumb folk, but she's not here.
All right. Who's up next?
108.
That would be that's a Kofi Thomas. I'm not sure if he's on. He's a fellow board member too, so I don't know.
That's gray area. No.
All right. Well, who's next?
14.
That is David Pratt. David here. Okay.
46.
All right. Makita Rambert. Makita.
How about 74?
Let's go with that is April Green.
Oh, April.
We love
I'm
April.
here. Hi.
Yay, you win, April.
Amazing. This has been an awesome day, everybody. My baby screamed for some of it, but I heard a lot of it and it's been wonderful. Thank you.
That's great. The last one is 35.
Okay. That is that's Alex Munoz again. So he's very lucky. But time for someone else.
56.
Okay. Enike McPherson. I see you. You're a winner.
Yes, I'm here, and I knew it. I knew it. Hello.
Right.
Hello. This is the beautiful lineup. What did I win? I wasn't following.
Some chopping boards.
Right up the board. I cook every day.
Right. And they fit together really beautifully.
Yes.
Congrats.
Yes.
This is such a fun Vanna White moment.
It's a beautiful, beautiful lineup. Thank you all. Thank you all. Congratulations. I'm a former original board member. I want everyone to know that. I was there in the transition, the 34 Garden. Hello, Irene. And Sophia, I remember when you came on board. Yes. And Meg, yes, Meg, it's so good to see you here. I was on board when Meg came on board too on nominations. So this is just a beautiful, beautiful occasion. You guys are doing a beautiful job. I'm so impressed. So Dea. Yes. All right, I'll stop now.
All right. Thanks.
Cool. Congratulations, everyone, and thanks again to Damon and to Joseph for donating those.
Thank you, Stephen and Curtis. I really, and Damon for the donations. So wonderful to see all of you guys getting a little takeaway gift, and always wonderful to see your faces. Lovely to hear folks, communing in the way that we normally would and coming off mic. I love it. We have reached the end of our day. Before we close out though, I would like to call our attention to our fundraiser that's going on Brooklyn Gives right now. We're going to drop the link in the chat. During the celebration of gardens, we have raised over $600 so far. So we want to give a huge shout out, a huge gratitude. We can come off mic and give a big applause and a scream or whatever you feel called to do. We want to thank all of the donors. We want to thank everyone doing a peer-to-peer fundraiser, and we absolutely want to thank two of our former board members, Irene and Demetrius, for doing a match campaign for us. I think that we're really going to make it. I think we're going to get to that 20K in 2020. And we also want to make sure that we thank our folks who donated as a part of their registration. So not everyone who registered was able to show up today, but they gave a little bit of money in the bucket for us, and that is going to support us in all of our continued efforts, continuing the things that we did, that we participated in today, as well as when we open the gardens again in the coming year, along with all of the administrative things that happen behind the scenes to make this possible. I just also want to really I'd love to highlight everything that was lifted up today, everything that was lifted up, the people power, the power of ecosystems, and the power of us working in collaboration collectively for the benefit of not only ourselves, but also for the edification of our communities, right? We cannot support the growth and the continuation of our holistic selves, our minds, our bodies, our spirits, our physical wellness, and our spiritual and emotional wellness without the support of the earth and without the support of all of us who inhabit the earth to make it flourish, to make it a place that we can build relationships from and feed ourselves from in the very literal way as well as the very spiritual way. And I'm just so filled up today. You know, I'm so grateful and so inspired and motivated. I would be remiss if I did not shout out our amazing events committee who worked their tails off for months trying to get this event together. Shout out Sophie, who is the head of that committee. Shout out the entire events committee for all of their tireless work. I'm so impressed. I'm so proud. And I just, you know, every day that we show up together, and it's not always pretty, you know, I'm sure we get on each other's nerves, and, you know, we still come together to get the work done because we're here for the common goal of making sure that space is safe, that it's sustainable, that it is inclusive of all of our community members, and that we have what we need to ensure that stays the case in perpetuity. I'm so grateful. We are at the end. Well, before we close out, our emeritus board member would like to just say a couple of words before we close out for the day. So Demetrius, if you'd like to come off of mute.
Okay.
Demetrius, oh, there you are.
You hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. You know, as you go back and you look where BQLT has came from and to what it is today, it keeps moving on. Shadea, you're doing a fantastic job. Elin, Katie, Sophia, Stephen, if I go all down the line, it would take an hour to just kind of thank everybody for being there for us, being there for BQLT. I'm starting a gardening group next year, and I'm going to call it BQLT Gardens. So, but I am proud. I am proud to have been a part of, shoot, I don't know, I might come back in next year or something like that. No, I'm not moving back to New York. But I just say that it is good to see you're progressing to the next level and you're doing the things that, you know, is worthy. Oh, and you gotta thank Tish James for still supporting us. This is the Attorney General of New York State that has never forgotten who we were. And she had been coming to BQLT events for a number of years. This is not something that, you know, she just came. She know who we are. And so we have made a great step into the work that we do. And I always felt that when you can have the community smile upon your work, you've done your job. Sade, you've done your job. All of you, the people that are leaving, don't leave. Don't leave. Be there. Sophie, you ain't going anywhere. And same thing. Sade, you ain't going nowhere either. Y'all be good. It was a pleasure. It's a pleasure to sit here. I wish I could have been closer. And you ain't going anywhere. So I wish I could have been closer to you to speak, you know, eye to eye, face to face. But this is the way the world is today. But I just wanted to say thanks to all of you for your support of BQLT and your continued support of BQLT. Love you all. Bye.
Demetrius, thank you so much. What a wonderful way to close out. Thank you all so much for attending. And please remember to continue sharing the fundraiser with your friends, your family, your networks. Thank you to our amazing presenters. Thank you to all of you for sticking with us, especially those of you who stuck with us the whole day. This is amazing. So we're gonna let you go out, enjoy the beautiful day, get some lunch. I'm hungry, I know you're probably hungry. And we hope to see you at our next event. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Eileen, I saw you.
Hey, Demetrius.
Good work, guys. Good work. This is Dorothy.
Great job.
Dorothy.
Thank you so much, Dorothy.
Thanks,
Renee.
Renee.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start. I'm
Yeah.
gonna stop the recording at this point. So thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone. Bye, 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 bye.
Bye, Ina.
Hey, Ina.
Yeah.